The Majority Report with Sam Cedar.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Cedar.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Cedar.
And I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Friday, September 18th, 2020. My name is Sam Cedar. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps and steps and steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal, the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, it's Casual Friday, folks. So casual. I forgot to book 2 guests. So we're just going to have one. But he's worthy of both segments, ladies and gentlemen. Virgil Texas from the podcast Bad Faith, the newly minted podcast Bad Faith, and Chapo Trap House will be joining us. Also on the program today, White House quashed post office plans to send everyone 5 free cloth masks in the first month of the pandemic. Let that sink in. Polls show the virus is pulling Donald Trump down. Can't imagine why, and Republican senators with him. Also, New York City delays in-person schools once again. That is blood you're hearing dripping from all of my my eyes, my nose, my ear. Judge issues a nationwide injunction on the Postal Service changes. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court keeps the Greens from the ballot and gives a 3-day extension on mail-in ballots. A former Pence aide and member of the coronavirus task force comes out and slams Trump. Meanwhile, another woman comes forward with an accusation of sexual assault by then real estate mogul Donald Trump. Meanwhile, the Trump administration to ban WeChat and TikTok because, of course. And Trump's got another secret healthcare plan. And this time, ladies and gentlemen, it's completely fictional. CDC scientists were overruled by HHS when it came to offering rigorous testing guidelines and guidance. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. If you are watching us, you will note that I am wearing a soft-collared shirt, as is tradition around here. It's Casual Friday. I dress down. I put all my hard-collared shirts away, although they're not too stiff. But this one is an obvious soft-collared shirt, and that's what I do on Casual Fridays. That's the way I celebrate it. In this era, we are now 46 days away. Is it 46? Matt, do you know how many days it is? Is it 47 or 46 days away from the election?
I don't know to that level of specificity.
I understand. Nevertheless, ladies and gentlemen, it's less than 50 days to the election. We are, I think it's like 6 weeks as of Tuesday. So somebody can do the math there. Tuesday's 42 days. Now, with that said, that is, that's just an approximate time for the end of the election. Pennsylvania, for instance, Supreme Court just said that they're going to accept mail-in ballots as late as the 6th of November. And Pennsylvania will be one of, less than, I think, a half dozen states, which will make the difference in this election. Pennsylvania, in and of itself, could be the deciding state. As you know, in 2016, Hillary Clinton lost that state by 40,000 votes, or I guess you could say Donald Trump won that state by 40,000 votes. They're expecting hundreds of thousands of mail-in ballots. It is quite possible, more than possible, we will be waiting for the counting of all those ballots. Now, if the deadline to get them in is the 6th, it's hard to imagine they're going to be able to finish counting them by the 7th, maybe the 7th, maybe the 8th. So just prepare yourselves. And it's not just a question of preparing yourself in such a manner that, well, I'm going to, emotionally manage myself in such a way that I can hold out. Because the interim period from the 3rd to, say, the 8th is going to be bat crap crazy. And honestly, like, there may be instances during that time where, we're going to have mass demonstrations and counter demonstrations, and but everybody's going to need to get involved in that in some fashion. So when I say prep for that, when I say contemplate that, start, get a babysitter now. Contemplate where you'll be. I really do think that's going to come down. We're going to talk to Virgil more about, like, sort of that, some of those scenarios a little bit. That's going to become a small fixation around these parts for the next 6 weeks. I hope you will indulge us. I mean, of course, we do other interviews, right? I mean, and I should just remind you a couple of things. One, check out Ring of Fire Radio this week. I interviewed a guy named Ollie Breland. I think he was writing for Mother Jones about the right-wing fixation with pedophilia. And in some ways, it's so obvious what it's about. In other ways, it was sort of revelatory for me. I mean, and this goes back a while. And in fact, I think we see it in, Matt, don't we, in that sound clip of the mask protest that comes up too?
This recent one in Utah?
Yeah. Some lady said, like, the masks promote pedophilia, or something to that effect. We will check that out, and I'll get back to that. Just want to remind you, this program relies on your support. You can become a member by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you support the show. You support the free show. You get extra content. You allow us to continue to expand for things like the AM Quickie, and to, just help our tech in these instances. I mean, it's a moving target. We've sort of have resolved the fact that we're not going to be in the office for a while, or at least as a full crew type of situation. So we're trying to invest in making the show a little bit better in the context of this. And I'm working on different ways of maybe finding resources to do that, et cetera, et cetera. But members, at the end of the day, are our go-to resource and our primary source of revenue. And I like it because I get a lot of bosses, but none that can actually fire me. That's what I like about that. So check that out. Also, amquickie.com. Let's get to this. This is stunning. Tommy Tuberville. Is it Tuberville or Tuberville? I guess I don't feel bad about it. I can't even say Nomi's name, but I mean,
I think it's Tuberville. That's what I remember from, like, Sports Center.
Okay. So Tuberville is running for governor in Alabama. He is running against Doug Jones. He is the Republican, Tuberville. And look, I think anybody should be eligible to run for office. I don't care if you're a football coach or a or any type of coach or an actor or a mechanic or a carpenter or
a jagoff
comedian, or if you clean homes for a living, or I don't care. But you should know, you should still be qualified to be senator. And by qualified, you should have the basic awareness of even like, not even maybe, I mean, I think you should have a deep policy understanding, but you should have a basic awareness of some of the really important landmark moments in the history of our country, particularly ones that implicate voting, particularly when you're in a state like Alabama, which you will recall the case that ended up gutting Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act came from Alabama. Some of the most celebrated moments in the struggle to get the vote for Black people happened in Alabama. So this, you would expect, if you had any participation in the civic knowledge surrounding your state, that you would be able to answer some of the most rudimentary questions about Voting Rights Act laws or Civil Rights Act laws, civil right laws. Here is Tommy Tuberville saying to all of you, like, I don't need to know that stuff.
Good question. Speaking of history taught in school, do you support extension of the Voting Rights Act?
Yeah. You know, the thing about the Voting Rights Act is, it's, you know, there's a lot of different things you can look at it as. You know, who's it going to help? You know, what direction do we need to go with it? I think it's important that with everything we do, we keep secure. We keep an eye on it. It's run by our government, and it's run to the point that it's got structure to it. It's like education. I mean, it's got to have structure. Now, for some reason, we look at things to change, to think we're going to make it better, but we'd better do a lot of work on it before we make that change.
Can you effing believe this guy is actually talking about education when he doesn't have a effing clue as to what the Voting Rights Act is? Can you imagine running for the state, for the federal, to become a federal senator from Alabama, or any state for that matter, or even a congressperson or a state senator, or I don't know, county comptroller, and not know what the Voting Rights Act is? Not be aware. I mean, the level of ignorance that you have to bathe in, like, I don't even know how you could, I mean, that's just shocking. And it is not enough to say he's just a football coach, because he's not. He's a candidate likely to win for the Senate in Alabama. That's stunning. That is really bad way of like saying, like, I don't know what you're talking about.
The Voting Rights Act is a land of contrasts in many ways.
He didn't even come up. He's like, look, there's a lot of different opinions on that. I need to examine the implications a little bit more. And of course, you know, it's not just, I love it. It's a government program.
Got to do a little work to make sure we want to go forward or backward or maybe adjacent.
Before we change anything on that, we got to do some hard work on it. Like, I got to get up to speed on this thing.
Got to Wikipedia that.
I got to, like, let me just hold on for 1 second. Anybody? Like, maybe he should have a handler on the phone with him. Like, doesn't he have an assistant coach who's there?
I mean, he should maybe just have somebody that can do an impersonation of him that has read up on some of this stuff.
That's unbelievable. And he's still going to win, right? I mean, I don't know if he's going to win, but I mean, he probably will win. That I just find, I almost want to hear that again. Let's play it again. Virgil will understand. He'll be with us soon.
All right, here it is. 1 second.
This is just too good. I mean, this is too, this is just stunning to me. Guy has no idea. This is from HuffPost. Well, I guess it was from what channel was he on? We should give them credit for asking him that gotcha question.
Oh yeah, this is. I'll say it afterwards.
Speaking of history taught in school, do you support extension of the Voting Rights Act?
Yeah. The thing about the Voting Rights Act is,
I just repeated back the name of the.
There's a lot of different things you can look at it as. Who's it going to help?
Yeah, who's it going to help? Who is the Voting Rights Act going to help?
I think it's important that with everything we do, we keep secure. We keep an eye on it. It's run by our government, and it's run to the point that it's got structure to it. It's like education. It's got to have structure. Now, for some reason, we look at things to change.
We look at them to change.
Think we're going to make it better, but we'd better do a lot of work on it before we make that change.
Did the guy follow up on that? I wish we okay, but okay. In other words, more specifically, what are you talking about, Tommy? Do you even know what it is? Tommy, do you know what year the Voting Rights Act passed? That would be the follow-up. I'd be like, or actually, I don't want to make this a gotcha. Do you know what decade it passed? Do you know what century it passed? Like, that guy has no idea what it is. Not even broad strokes.
Yeah. That was with the Birmingham, Alabama Sunrise Rotary Club with a call on September 1st.
So wait a second. So they were on a, oh, I see. They were doing an interview with him. It wasn't a radio interview.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, when you get stumped by the Rotary Club,
the damn Rotary Club,
those guys, they're just, they'll zero in on you. They're hardened journalists. And wow. Well, kudos to that guy for asking that question. I can't imagine he sat at home and was like, said to anybody who's at home, I'm like, I'm going to get him tomorrow. I'm going to ask him what his, if he thinks that the Voting Rights Act should be extended. That's a total gotcha question. He's not even going to know what it is. In a million years, you would never contemplate that guy wouldn't have an idea of what it is. Maybe he would have a weird answer, but he has no idea. That's unbelievable. Oh, I'm psyched about what we got today in terms of ads. I mean, it's maybe an exaggeration. I wish we didn't have to have ads, but these are all products that I use. For many of us, and I use them, well, sort of, I guess, every day. Well, I'll explain in a moment. But as you know, very tough to maintain a rhythm in an era like this, because even though we know we're sort of like in this status for, I don't know, at least a couple more months, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months, we don't know if it's at 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 months. It's hard to maintain habits, hard to maintain daily routines. But the bottom line is you must continue to have, and it's even more important now. I explained this to my kids very early on in this process. Oral hygiene. Take care of your teeth. Now is the time to develop a really good habit about it. And the way you do that when it comes to your teeth, Quip. It makes it easy for you to brush and floss better. The Quip electric toothbrush has a timed sonic vibrations, 30 seconds, does it 4 times, 30, 30, 30, 30 for the 4 quadrants of your mouth. And it gives you the dentist recommended 2 minutes. Some of us like to do it twice. I'm not saying you have to, but it has fundamentally changed the way that my kids brush their teeth. For kids, Saul has a small sized one, and I don't have to say count. It doesn't do this thing. I'm like, you used to be like sing happy birthday, or what was it? No, the alphabet. But what a kid does, they don't think like, oh, I got to count to 120 seconds. They race through it. They don't realize that it's not just the actual saying. And so this, I don't even have to deal anything. I just say, press the button, dude. When that is done, you are done. Plus, with Quip's anti-cavity toothpaste, an eco-friendly refillable floss dispenser, you get all the ingredients of teeth actually need. They've got a watermelon-flavored toothpaste that Saul loves. Quip brush head, toothpaste, floss refills. They're delivered on a dentist-recommended schedule. That's every 3 months for just $5. Shipping is free. You can join over 3 million happy customers using Quip, starting at $25. I gift Quip toothbrushes. Done it to my sisters. I've done it to well, I guess it's not a gift to my son, but if you go to getquip.com/majority right now, you get your first refill free. That's your first refill free. That's a $5 savings at getquip.com/majority, spelled get, GETQUIP, quip.com/majority. Quip is the good habits company. This endorsement that I'm going to give, actually, it's one of those, there are times where it's like, I use a product, I see it on the list of potential advertisers, I say to our media broker, I use this stuff already. I'm happy to advertise for them. I mean, I'll do it for money, but I mean, I use it. Okay. When is the perfect time to plant trees and shrubs? This is going to be a surprise to you. And actually, I found this out just days ago. It's the fall. I always thought it was the spring, but it's the fall. The vast majority of trees, you want to get them in the fall. The roots then go dormant, and then they're ready to get going over the spring. And now is the time to go to fastgrowingtrees.com. So I have fruit trees. And I replace old apple trees with new apple trees. And at first, years and years and years ago, when I lived up here full time, I would use bare root stock, and they're tiny, and they would always die. They wouldn't make it. They need more water. It's super hard to get them to stick unless you're like, a farmer. I found fast growing trees. I think I was just noodling around online. They sell you trees that are a couple years old. They're much bigger. I don't know that the trees actually grow faster, but they're already hardy trees, and they send them to you through the mail. The reason why I love fast growing trees is because they really should be called, you can't really kill them as easily trees. Because the fast growing trees I have an Arkansas black already giving me apples. 1 year in, this year I planted some Korean pears, the big ones. I'm going to get a Korean pear. I don't think I'm going to get many next year, but to get any, the second year you have the tree is just it's crazy. They got nut trees, they got fruit trees. Skip the big box stores. Head to fastgrowingtrees.com. It's the world's largest online nursery. You don't have to wait in lines. You don't get your car messed up. They've got thousands of varieties of trees, shrubs, and plants expertly curated to thrive in your area. They're delivered to your door in just 1 or 2 days. Whether you're looking for shade, privacy, fruit trees, or just added color for your yard, every plant is shipped with a well-developed root system. That's the key. It's ready to explode with new growth come spring. There's a better way to buy trees and shrubs. Plant for your home and yard, fastgrowingtrees.com. Fall is planting season. Believe me, do your reading on this. Don't let anybody tell you any different. Join over 1 million satisfied gardeners at fastgrowingtrees.com. Plus, the 30-day Alive and Thrive guarantee means your plants will arrive happy, healthy, and ready for planting. Now through November 15th, go to fastgrowingtrees.com/majority for 10% off. That's 10% off at fastgrowingtrees.com/majority, fastgrowingtrees.com/majority. And lastly, today's program also sponsored by one of our favorite, sunsetlakecbd.com. They are out of Vermont. They got great farming practices, 100% pesticide-free hemp, only organic fertilizer. They work with the University of Vermont to implement regenerative agricultural practices. Their labor practices are excellent. Minimum wage, $15 an hour. The employees own the majority of the company. I use the tincture to go to sleep. I use the salve for my knee now, and also for some eczema. They have gummy bears. They've got smokables. Matt was a skeptic, loves it now.
Get the smalls, folks.
He's a big Smalls fan. But I got to say, the pre-rolls are pretty good too. A couple of drags of that, and I'm feeling it, but it's not that spacey. It's not the psychoactive thing you get from pot. So it's just a perfect relaxation. They have a Farmer's Roast CBD coffee. It's a dark roast, and it's my weekend brew when I want to take the edge off a little bit, but I still need my caffeine. So check it out. You get 20% off at sunsetlakecbd.com when you use Left is Best. One word, Left is Best. 20% off sunsetlakecbd.com. All right. Do we have Virgil? Ladies and gentlemen, he is the host of, a co-host of Bad Faith podcast. That's a new podcast. And also on Chapo Trap House, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, Virgil Texas. Virgil, there you are. I see you wearing you've got an Adidas sweatsuit on.
Yes, that's right. Sam.
Virgil, it's been a while.
Sam, it's so good to see you.
This is the least dressed up I think I've ever seen you.
This is dressed up. I mean, this is a look.
Well, you have no tie on.
I don't have a tie. I don't always have to wear a tie.
No, you don't always have to wear a tie. I just, usually we anticipate a little bit of, I don't know, a little dapperness from you, and I guess not.
This is dapper. This is a look. If you're in the chat right now, there's a chat room, correct?
This is chat. Well, I mean, of sorts.
Yeah, there's a chat. If you're in the chat, they're
loving it.
Say that I look dapper, or if you agree with Sam, say I'm an asshole.
Okay, all right. That's one way of.
Democracy.
Democracy. I understand. That's not the way I would vote. All right.
I'm so happy to see you after my ordeal.
What was the ordeal?
Well, you know how I've been offline for several months.
I had no idea. Do tell.
You follow me on Twitter.
I do.
You follow me. You didn't realize. You didn't know that.
I haven't. No, I've been.
You don't read them? You ever be muted or something?
No, I don't have you muted. Of course. Why would you think that?
Well, yeah, I was gone. I was gone for several months.
And then you reemerged like a phoenix from the ashes on Bad Faith. What is that?
Well, I got out. Is what happened. I got out. You see, after the Bernie campaign ended, I came back to New York, right? And the pandemic hit, and went to quarantine, and I had all this time to myself, right? And I thought, all right, what am I going to do with my time? I guess I should, finish some of the projects that I've started and I never got to, now I got all this free time. Why don't I do one of my, pursue one of my passions that I'd put on hold? So I decided that I am going to find out who Lev Parnas is. I'm just going to do it. I'm just let's do it.
You went deep into Lev Parnas. Now
I went deep into Lev Parnas. Yeah.
I don't know if you know this. I that's who I dressed up as for last Halloween.
I knew that was one of the clues I have. Okay. That was in my book.
You wrote a book about Lev Parnas.
Yeah, it's like a notebook, like a detective's notebook.
Right.
So here's what I did. I took the Excella down to DC, and it was very cheap because it's like mostly empty. It was very cheap because of all the people dying.
Right.
And I went down to DC and I went to the Library of Congress. Now, as you know, the Library of Congress is open 24/7. It's always open. It's like a Waffle House.
Right.
Even during a pandemic or a hurricane or something like that, that stays open. That has to stay open by law. I went down to the Library of Congress. I went down to the sub-basement D, the occult section.
Mm-hmm.
And, I went down a dark hallway. I'm carrying a candle in this. So you can picture me carrying a candle. It's not well lit there. That's like, because of budget cuts and like all the Republican crap.
Coincidentally, exactly how I always picture you, but go ahead.
No, okay. I go down a long hallway and I see at the end of a hallway. There's a very, very tall, like, stack of books, and also there's artifacts, skulls and things of that nature. At the end of this hallway, on the tippy top of this very, very high stack of books, like 10 feet, I don't know, I'm bad with heights, but something like that, I see a very large book with a not a Star of David, a pentagram. Yes, right. A pentagram on it. And I can just barely make out the spine. It says, it was something like summoning incantations. And I think this is perfect. I can summon someone who can explain to me who Lev Parnas is. Like a 40s whiz kid or something, like an Alex Trebek, someone smart, someone who would know that.
Right.
So I start clambering up the shelf, because there's no ladders there at the stacks, because budget cuts. The Trump budget that they passed, right. All the tax cuts for the rich. And when you know it, the thing falls over, and it just pins me down. And I start hollering, hey, come get me. But I'm wheezy because I have the disease that's killing everyone. And I was just there for months.
Oh my God.
I was there for months. Yeah, and then eventually someone else came down there and let me out. It was not Lev Parnas. That would be like a fun end to the story if it was Lev Parnas. That
would have been a great end to the story.
No, it was some lady who worked there. It was not interesting.
I gotta say, that sounds horrific. I'm sorry you went through that, Virgil. We're glad to have you back. Congratulations on that, and I'm happy to hear about bad faith. All right, but
Bad Faith, I should explain what Bad Faith is. So Bad Faith is a new show. It's a new podcast that I started in recovery for my ordeal with friend of your show, Brianna Joy Gray, who's wonderful. She's phenomenal to work with, and she was Bernie Sanders' national press secretary.
Correct.
And now she's a podcaster with me. I've dragged her down with me.
Yes.
And we have a show. It's called Bad Faith. You can find it on like most platforms. So look for Bad Faith, and you can find it on Patreon. And I do hope your audience takes a look at it. Go to patreon.com/badfaithpodcast. There's a free episode that's up. There's another one posting today, which whenever I get off the phone with Sam Cedar, I'm going to post that. Okay. And if you subscribe to the show for $5 a month, you get weekly bonus episodes. And the episodes we've done have been good. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to them, but it's good.
To be honest with you,
that's okay.
It's very recent. It's
very recent. It's just started, but we've gotten amazing feedback. People love the show, and they love our dynamic, our little interplay there. Because Brianna's of many ways we have similar politics, but she is a very different person than I. Yeah, she's optimistic. She wants to get along with people. She's normal. She's hygienic. Smiles. She's well liked.
Yeah.
She's healthy. She's healthy. I don't know if I said healthy.
Two different.
We're very different.
Like the odd couple.
It's the odd couple. So it's the differences that make the dynamic very fun and also very educational. And I forgot the best part. It is a panel show. You know panel shows.
I know panel shows. Now, my understanding is this raises a good point. My understanding is your panel wow, thirsty. Your panel this week discussed some issues around like sort of the election and the Electoral College and the ways that Trump might steal. All right, I want to get to some of those things, but let's start here for a minute, okay? I want to play this clip for you, because I don't know if you've seen it, because I think this is, along with the Woodward tapes. And I think there's, I don't know. I'm of a couple of minds about this in terms of what this election is going to turn on, I think. But here is Olivia Troye. She was Mike Pence's lead staffer on the COVID task force. She resigned 2 months ago, and she is now speaking out in one of those, an ad from those Republicans Against Trump thing. It's not quite the Lincoln Project. It's something different. But check this out.
I'm Olivia Troye. I was Homeland Security and Counterterrorism Advisor to Vice President Pence and served as Vice President Pence's lead staff member on the COVID-19 response. I've been on the COVID task force from day one. I mean, the virus was very unpredictable at the beginning. There were a lot of unknowns, but towards the middle of February, we knew it wasn't a matter of if COVID would become a big pandemic here in the United States, it was a matter of when. But the president didn't want to hear that because his biggest concern was that we were in an election year and how is this going to affect what he considered to be his record of success. It was shocking to see the president saying that the virus was a hoax, saying that everything's okay when we know that it's not. The truth is, he doesn't actually care about anyone else but himself. He made a statement once that was very striking. I never forgot it because it pretty much defined who he was. When we were in a task force meeting, the president said, maybe this COVID thing is a good thing. I don't like shaking hands with people. I don't have to shake hands with these disgusting people. Those disgusting people are the same people that he claims to care about. These are the people still going to his rallies today who have complete faith in who he is. If the president had taken this virus seriously, or if he had actually made an effort to tell how serious it was, he would have slowed the virus spread. He would have saved lives. It was the opportunity and honor of a lifetime to be able to serve in the White House. I put my heart and soul into this role every single day. But at some points, I would come home at night, I would look myself in the mirror and say, are you really making a difference? Does it matter? Because no matter how hard you work and what you do, the president is going to do something that is detrimental to keeping Americans safe, which is why you signed up for this role. It was awful. It was terrifying. I have been a Republican for my entire life. I am a McCain Republican, I am a Bush Republican, and I am voting for Joe Biden because I truly believe we are at a time of constitutional crisis. At this point, it's country over party.
I mean, when I get past like the idea that anybody could be a McCain Republican or a Bush Republican or a Republican, that to me, that ad is effective in two different ways, it seems to me, both in terms of like his utter failure in the response to COVID, enough so that you have people resign in the middle of that, somebody who is a die in the wood. Well, and then the other part is like, this is his own deplorables moment too, isn't it?
Well, first off, I want to say he is right about the handshake thing. I don't know why we do that. It's disgusting even when there's not a pandemic. It's just gross. We just shouldn't do it. We shouldn't be touching each other. Like when you just meet someone, you shouldn't do it.
I agree with that.
We should bow. But bowing is great. It's a noble thing to do. It's elegant.
You don't think that those people are disgusting. You just think that all humanity is disgusting.
I don't think all humanity is disgusting. I just think, I know what I do with my hands. Okay. Let's just put it that way. You don't want to shake my hand.
I have not. I mean, that is one.
You have not shaken my hand.
Yeah.
You've not shaken my hand. So, correct.
But on a political level.
On a political level, here's the thing about the coronavirus, about messaging about the coronavirus. Like, obviously, from where you and I are sitting, it looks like Biden should be up by 20-25%, right? And when people are polled about how Trump's doing on the coronavirus, he's in the low 40s there, right?
I think like even mid 30s, even.
Maybe mid 30s, maybe low 40s. Yeah, okay. I've seen some with mid 30s. Like it depends a little bit on the phrasing, but generally, most people are unhappy. But I mean, a shocking number of people are fine with all of this. The 200,000 deaths and the economic collapse and the complete dysfunction from Washington, both from Congress and just from within the administration, and just how cartoonishly bad the response has been. But the problem is, people don't really have a yardstick to measure this against. Because, of course, we as Americans, we are just not aware of other countries. You want to tell someone that, hey, if you're in South Korea, you can get a free test and get the results within an hour, every single person in the country, whatever you want. They're like, I don't believe that. Right. No, testing has to be a huge pain in the ass that you pay for. Of course, it's analogous to socialized medicine. People just don't believe it, that's a thing that exists, and it's just like a common day-to-day thing in every country. So, I mean, with nothing to compare it to, of course, the Republican messaging is just going to sink into the kind of relativism. Okay? So, well, how do you know any other president wouldn't have had 200,000 deaths? And I mean, in all fairness, it would be hyperbolic to say, oh, well, if Hillary had won, there would be 0 deaths. Well, no, that's nonsense. That's not the case. There's a lot of structural problems. There's a federal problem. Excuse me, I'm sick also.
And it's
it's not COVID. It's not COVID, but don't shake my hands. I am sick. I am sick. And so, you're going to have to go easy. You're going to have to go easy on me today.
Well, but I think your point is really well taken. And there's 2 things that occur to me. Like, one, I think I saw a stat the other day that based upon just the size of our country relative to, let's say, Canada, we would have something like 7,000 deaths. Now, I think that seems to be, but we should also say, you're right. Structurally speaking, Canada is much more suited to deal with a crisis like this. We all saw that video of how easy it was for people to get unemployment insurance and stay at home and not work. And you have a more I think you have a better healthcare system in terms of helping people. But yes, it's hard to say Trump is responsible for X number of deaths. You just know that that his failures have led to deaths, and it's probably tens of thousands that were I don't know what unnecessary means, but were extra essentially because of his incompetence. And then the other thing that you raise is a good point. I remember reading about focus groups where they would tell people the Republican proposal for, let's say, whatever it was. And the focus groups thought that that response was so outrageous that they did not believe that Republicans were actually doing that. And so they thought it was just a Democratic lie. They were like, there's no way that that's a real proposal. And they just assumed it was a lie that was being told by the Democrats.
Well, it really is extraordinary. The totality of this response of how incompetent the Trump response has been. And honestly, it's so overwhelming that I think your average person who is not like closely following politics, like watching MSNBC every day or CNN every day, or as it were, just like can't wrap their head around how bad it. I mean, I can't really wrap my head around it. It's kind of like when Trump's, the corruption in the administration. It's like if you actually wrote it all down and read it to me, I'm gonna have to think like, oh, you got to be pulling my leg,
right?
Really, that's all just happening. And as well, it's like, this is a pandemic. Like, this is a complicated thing, right? And this is a complicated. There's multiple layers of authority when you have an emergency like this, and you have, like, say, intransigent Republican governors, for instance, who are going to, screw the whole thing up. So it's difficult to explain that actual power dynamic if you're not already like very, very well acquainted with it. And as well, I mean, I honestly, when faced with that complexity, I think people just want to go with what sounds nice. So when Trump goes on television and says, hey, I got a miracle cure, like drink this crap they're selling on the InfoWars shop. People are like, okay, that's simple. That's easier. Of course, it's simple to tell people to wear a mask and that, that's socially distanced and we'll give you a check and all that stuff. But, well, I mean, that costs money, right?
Here is, there is a poll that was out today, New York Times Siena College poll, likely voters from September 10th to the 16th. By a 25-point margin, 60% to 35%, they trust Biden over Trump on the issue of the pandemic. And that is translating into increasing leads in states like Arizona, in Maine, the Tide in North Carolina.
Roll Tide.
In all three states, the Democratic Senate candidates were leading Republican incumbents by 5 percentage points or more. So you got Collins of Maine is down 5 points to Sarah Gideon.
She's toast. She's toast.
Collins is toast. I think Martha McSally is toast. Tom Tillis could be toast.
I think he's toast. Yeah, I think all three of those are gone.
Now, we should say that these trends existed pre-pandemic. I mean, if you look at the polls in terms of the Senate polls before this, they were all in trouble in January. It's just it's now it's more dramatic, and I think part of it is they're associating with Donald Trump. I think I think the impeachment stuff is hurting, and you know, and I think, you know, this is, but let me ask you this. And then we'll get to the question of like, how relevant is the actual vote going to be on some level? But
of course.
It's on some level, it's silly to talk about like if there was no coronavirus, I feel like Joe Biden might have some problems right now. From the perspective of a leftist, you know, I know how this is going to go with he's going to come in, he's going to get in because of the coronavirus, and it's going to be it's going to be interpreted as a mandate for moderation. I mean, that's the way it always works in that regard. And I think, you know, sadly, that is going to spell a problem for 2022. But does this thing, like this thing that we just listened to, this story today about the U.S. Postal Service, apparently through a Freedom of Information Act, an organization found out that the post office had plans to send everyone in the country 5 free cloth masks, something like I think it was in April, and the White House put the kibosh on it. This was before Louis DeJoy was there. I mean, that is psychotic.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, the thing is, people won't believe you if you tell them that.
I guess that's the problem. Is like, I can barely believe it, and I believe it, but I can barely believe it. And if I was somebody who just was like, what? We were going to send that? No, that's not true.
Kind of, I mean, you know, another thing that really just defies all logic is the inability of Congress to pass another stimulus bill, another extension of unemployment benefits, stuff in the post office, stuff in the states. I know there's a lot of stuff that in that bill that Republicans are hell-bent against, such as, say, making sure the election goes smoothly. Okay, I get that. But there's frankly no reason for anyone to object to extending like the enhanced unemployment benefits. Because there's a lot of Republicans up in November, and they want to be able to go home and say, hey, I got you a fat check. Donald Trump should want to go to every American and say, hey, I got you another one of these checks with my freaking fakes on it and my freaking signature on it. Like, that's just great. That's politics 101. And of course, we're in an emergency. So you can tell the Rand Paul, phony baloney deficit carer abouters to shut the hell up.
Don't you think that's a sign?
Yet they can't do it.
Well, what do you make of that? I mean, don't you think that's a sign that McConnell believes that there is no opportunity for the Republicans to hold the Senate, and that he believes, or he believes that there's a very good chance that Donald Trump is going to lose, and therefore he doesn't want to pass this because he doesn't think that it's going to make a difference, and he doesn't want to help out Joe Biden and a Democratic Senate.
So maybe he thinks he's playing hardball and this somehow makes Nancy Pelosi look bad. But it's like, dude, your guy's sitting in the White House. Like you're getting way more blame for this than Pelosi is. Frankly.
I would think so.
On our panel, which is our next free episode, I'm going to release it later today, again at patreon.com/badfaithpodcast. On our panel, Osita Nwanevu, the writer for The New Republic, he talked about this. And his thesis is that, conservatism has run out of things to do. They've spent the past 20 years, savaging, like having these tax cuts and, opening up drilling and savaging corporate regulations. And now they're on to stuff that, like, if they do it, it just straight hurts their own base. Like it's like they couldn't even pass the getting rid of Obamacare, or if they want to pare down Medicare, right? Okay, well that's mostly hurting minorities who live in cities and don't vote Medicaid. I'm sorry, Medicaid. Yes, I'm sick. So
I understand.
I'm so sick. But if they want to do like the real psycho Paul Ryan shit and then privatize Social Security and Medicare, okay, that's hurting a lot of white people who vote for you as well now. So his idea is like, there's nothing more that conservatism can do institutionally to move the country to the right. And again, this is his argument. This isn't mine. I don't necessarily agree with that. And so at this point, they're just solely a force for inertia, essentially. I don't necessarily agree with Osita, but that's one thesis about this whole thing. And he uses the failure to pass the stimulus as an example. And my colleague at Chapo, Matt Chrisman, his idea is that, well, an election's coming up and we can't let people know that they can vote for more money for themselves. And I kind of like that one too. That's quite true.
I think I think there is, look, I think Nancy Pelosi made it very clear that they are worried. Even in the HEROES Act, which everybody knew was not going to pass, it was a messaging bill. Even in the HEROES Act, they were afraid to set the marker that we could expand Medicare, just even in an emergency. Because if you do it in an emergency, people are like, hey, wait a second. Why can't we do that at other times?
We could have just done that.
Right? Like if we could subsidize Cobra, why can't we? And I think they don't want to lay down that marker. I think they don't want to. They're afraid of people's imagination. I think there's a certain amount of that with the Republicans. But, what is your thesis, though? What is your thesis as to why Mitch McConnell would do this? Because I'm quite convinced it is an indication that he's just looking at this. There's a 51% chance we're going to lose. And in that case, I'm in obstruction mode. I'm in the history books because of what I did with the courts. I've done everything I can do. If Donald Trump wins, it's not going to be by getting more votes. If the Republicans hold the Congress, hold the Senate, it's not going to be because we got more votes.
He honestly might wager that, okay, I know I've got some incumbents who are in trouble here, but what's going to help them more? Passing this bill that they can go home to their constituents and talk about, or defunding the Postal Service? It's a fair calculation. I don't have, between the constellation of possibilities that we've discussed here, I'm not enamored with any single, any single explanation. For God's sakes, we're talking about what goes on in this ancient, awful man's head. It's not really something I can figure out. It's kind of like playing the game of what's Trump thinking here? Well, it's I don't know. He's thinking sex, McDonald's, TV. It's not. No, I'm doing the hand thing because I'm sick.
Right. No, I understand. Of course. It is stunning. I'm convinced that they realized that the way that they won last time, at least the way that Trump won, was you had two unlikable candidates. And the question was on November 3rd or whenever election day was in 2016, which one was going to be marginally less liked in the right places, essentially. And I think they're hoping for the same thing. It's almost like, the idea of going negative, where they say that if you go negative, the mud you fling, some of it sticks to you as well. And I think that they know, that's Trump's strategy. It's just like, I think I am going to be able to fling a little bit more mud. Because you're right, they come home from the Senate and people are like, you guys aren't doing anything. And I think they also feel like, well, Nancy Pelosi, we're better at this, at blaming Nancy Pelosi than she is at blaming the Republicans.
I also want to note that I don't think Mitch McConnell thinks, well, the Senate's gone. I don't believe he believes that. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that's the most likely outcome right now. But just as well, there is a world of difference between a 50-50 Senate and a Senate where Democrats have 57 votes and then they control the White House. Because if you have 57 votes, if Democrats get 57 votes and they keep their House majority, and the House majority, they'll pass anything. And Biden is Biden and Harris are in the White House, then you can actually start to do some of the loony liberal stuff that they've been squawking about. You can actually do some of the suspending the filibuster stuff. you don't have to worry about Joe Manchin or Sinema gumming up the works there, or Angus King gumming up the works. Like 57 votes, there is a world of difference. And it's very possible to get to 57 votes. You have Iowa in play. You have South Carolina is very much so in play. Texas is arguably in play. The Democratic candidate in Texas, MJ Hagar, I believe his name is, has never polled well. She hasn't polled above 40%. But her opponent, longtime incumbent, Cornine, he's never polled above 47% this year. Which is rather something. Kansas is in play. I mean, I think Republican will win there, but it's in play. It's close. In
Georgia, one of the Georgia races is in play too. I think Loeffler could be in trouble.
So there's two Georgia races, right? There's a special election. Yep. And there is, that's the seat that Kelly Loeffler, who's embroiled in this insider trading scandal, that she was appointed to. And then there's another seat where Isaacson, I believe is the name. He is being challenged by
Ossoff.
John Ossoff. Vote your Ossoff from that special election a couple of years ago. And there is an actual difference in how these two races are functioning. In the Ossoff race, it's just a one-on-one Republican versus Democrat. And I think that is a very competitive race. I think that's like an even bet race at this point. In the Loeffler seat, it's like a jungle primary because it's a special election. So there are two Republicans running, and both of them are getting like a substantial chunk of the vote. And there are three Democrats running that are splitting the Democrat votes. And right now, according to most of the polls I've seen, it looks like the runoff, if no one gets 50%, which no one's going to get 50%, right. The runoff is likely to be two Republicans there, which of course is a very, distressing, stupid thing. So it's very possible that Ossoff wins his seat and that a Republican just wins the other seat. But it's also possible that one Democrat manages to consolidate the vote in time and goes to a runoff and wins the runoff. So I mean, that's two seats in a state that Joe Biden is investing a lot of resources into.
Yep.
Montana's also, in play. Democrats got their top recruit there. Some people have said Alaska's in play. I haven't really looked at it. I haven't asked her. It's a little joke there.
Yeah, Alaska.
Alaska. That's a little joke.
Alaska.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
So let me ask you this, Virgil. What? Let's talk a little bit about what I think is just as salient as the polls at this point, because who knows, right? I mean, I think when you talk about these states, so much is dependent on turnout, and modeling turnout is always tricky in this era. And then the idea of modeling turnout in this era with coronavirus is like, it's not like you can go back and go like, hey, this looks like the electorate the last time we had a pandemic or something like that. That doesn't happen. But what is going to happen is we're probably not going to know who won the election on the 3rd. Pennsylvania just said they're extending their mail-in deadline until the 6th. Which means they're not going to even start counting until then, or maybe they start counting before, but they're not going to, there's no way they could finish the count by any day prior to the 6th. Pennsylvania could be a very key state. Obviously, Wisconsin, Michigan, Florida might be, Arizona. It really sort of depends on where all the chips fall, but chances are we're not going to know. And you're a young man. I don't know if you remember 2000.
I do remember 2000.
I spent every day from November 3rd or 4th, whatever it was, until January, taking pictures of my television. At that time, we had
you got weird hobbies, Sam.
It was a weird hobby, but I took hundreds of pictures of my television with a film camera of them counting the Chads and the Brooks Brothers riot and everything that was on live TV, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm convinced we're going to have some variation of that, except for it's going to be more violent and scary. Tell me what you guys talked about in this regard.
First off, I imagine you taking pictures of your television and it's turned off. I was wondering what model television. Maybe it just looks very interesting and cute. I don't know. Maybe it's like a 50s kind of John Water apartment setup, and you just like taking pictures of it and putting it in a scrapbook.
Yes, I mean, of course I do that. That's meta on top of the actual, like, what does the TV look like that I was taking a picture of the images? But
I'm picturing rabbit ears, like full.
Back in the early 90s, if you want to know the truth, during the Clarence Thomas hearings, I did that, and it was a rabbit ear type of situation. But,
so we did talk about this. This is a substantial part of our panel discussion. So if you want the full panel, and not just, my sick bed, fluish recollections of it, you can go to patreon.com/badfaithpodcast. This will be up later today. It will be a free episode. You can find it there. You can find it on Bad Faith on iTunes or Spotify. But yes, we talked about this exact thing. And of course, the process of actually counting the votes is very, it's an arcane, kind of ridiculous and frankly, totally outmoded process of the Electoral College. But generally, a few months ago, the conversation was more, what if Trump refuses to leave? And that was I think that's hysteria, frankly. Yeah. Like that's the silly stuff. Is the military's not doing a coup to stop Joe Biden from becoming president.
Right.
And once Congress counts the electoral votes, which Congress does.
Can we just stop for 1 second and just contemplate the idea that we are watching, ABC News, and they're talking about how Trump has literally chained himself to the to the desk in the White House, and they're like, going in there with the jaws of life to cut.
It's one of those awful reality TV shows.
Yeah.
Where they just where they have someone with just like mental problems.
Yeah.
Who has hoarding. And it's like kind of something for the whole country to gawk at it, except this is, our the moron president.
Right.
And of course, Trump is a guy who he doesn't put a lot of effort into things. He gives up very easily. He walks away from shit all the time.
Right.
So once it's clear to him that he loses, he's just going to make up some reason why and say, I was fake, but you know what? I'm walking away for the good of the country, or I got better crap to do.
Right.
And then he is going to do other crap, and we'll be with him for another 30 years probably.
Right. Or he splits the country and he goes to some place where he feels that the Southern District of Manhattan doesn't have jurisdiction. But go ahead.
No, he's not going to prison. That's not being indicted. That's 100% not happening.
All right. Well, all right.
Right. No. So that part is hysteria, because once Congress meets on January 6th, I think, or thereabouts, counts the electoral votes, declares, Biden the winner, then that's it. That's it. We all know what the next president is. The military knows, Supreme Court knows, it is done. But it's not easy to get to that point.
Right.
When, as your audience surely knows, when you vote for president on November, as I'm sure you're going to do, I'm sure you're all the voting public, you vote not for a person, but you vote for a slate of electors, right? And your state in December, the electors all meet in every state capital, and they formally cast their electoral votes. And then those votes are transmitted to Washington, D.C., where they're counted on the floor of Congress, of the next Congress that's sworn in January. The nightmare scenario is that on election night, and this is going to be a horrible election night, by the way. I'm not sure what party I'm going to, but it's going to be very bad. Right. On election night, it's 4 a.m., and it looks like across the board Trump is winning, because the theory is Democrats are by a big margin more likely to cast their votes via mail. And mail is, and of course the president has spent months railing against voting by mail and calling it illegitimate. And there will be a strong temptation by not just the president, but many fucking influential people in the Republican Party to say on election night, well, it looks like Trump won. There you have it. Case closed. Well, it's going to take over a week to count all of these mail-in ballots. And as you pointed out, in many states, they're not even going to start counting the mail-in ballots till a few days after Election Day, when they will be reporting the live, the in-person votes that night. So as each day goes by, Trump's lead, places like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, in this scenario, goes down, keeps going down, and Republicans start freaking out, and they start thinking, no, all of these mail-in ballots are illegitimate. They start making that case. Like, this is where the fraud's happening and the election is being stolen. And of course, they say this every election night, like, oh, the late return favors Democrats, therefore it's biased, therefore it's all BS, the election was stolen. They say this all the time.
I want to remind everybody that Paul Ryan in 2016 said this whole thing with these late ballots in California is very, very, very suspicious. I mean, Paul Ryan said this, right? I mean, he was the one who was supposed to be. So I just want to, like, everyone else will say this if Paul Ryan is the one as the Speaker of the House, right?
Right.
I mean,
if you get guys like McConnell and McCarthy saying that on a Wednesday after the election, saying something fishy is going on, that's going to be a signal to every single Republican legislator on the state and national levels who might have been on the fence about this one and might have thought, well, I know Trump lost, so, screw it. Just let him go. It's fine. Which is, again, that's the Osita thesis that they will probably think that way. It's a signal to them that says, okay, we're going to whip this vote. This is a vote that counts. We're going to take this election. Like, once the Republican Party has a monolith, the institution of the Republican Party has agreed, no, we're going to steal this election. We're going to take it. Then they have an opportunity to do that. And they do that the same way they stole the election in 2000, which you and I know they did it because we were watching the same TV with the rabbit ears. I was not taking pictures of mine, and I wish I had because I missed that TV. It was beautiful. You're smart. It's smart to take pictures. The way to win is to shut down the votes. And right now, when you have things like this guy with an assault rifle murdering two people in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and then immediately being hailed as a hero, not by the alt-right, but by the right, by the Republican Party, a hero. Imagine what these assault rifle lunatics are going to do when they realize, oh, I can just walk down to the elections office in Madison, Wisconsin.
This is exactly
who is going to stop me?
Yep.
Who's going to, I can go right in, just like they did in the Brooks Brothers riot. I can storm the place. Who is going to stop me? Will the police stop me? Or will the police think, Trump's got a point. All the Communians are endorsing him.
This is exactly what has been keeping me awake for about 3 or 4 weeks, maybe more. And I would even go a step further. It is not difficult for me to believe that it's not just some random dude that's going to go do this in Madison, Wisconsin, but that a guy like Roger Stone is saying to the Proud Boys, you got to have 30 guys in, this county in Michigan, because this is where the election's going to be in the balance. You got to have 30 guys in this district in Wisconsin. You got to have 30 guys in this district in Pennsylvania. And when you 30 guys go out there, you'll get another dozen or 2 dozen militia will come and join you and this and that. And you'll start something. You'll be able to shut down the count there. And I mean, like, that to me, that strikes me as like, it's not just going to be some rando. Like, if we know that there are going to be, a dozen counties in the country that are going to make up the difference in this election, which I can't list them off for you, but we could probably get Weigel on here and he could tell us. They certainly know it. And if they know it, they're the type of people who know that, like, we may need this. And there you have it. There's the whole assault.
Well, first off, it might behoove us to ask Dave Weigel to not disclose this information because perhaps it would be very useful to them, and maybe we don't want them to know what the crucial counties are.
Fair enough.
That could be helpful. That's one way we could safeguard this. But again, 2000, the Florida recount, and let's brush up on our history just a little bit here. The Brooks Brothers riot took place in Miami-Dade County at the elections office there, where. And this was organized. This was an organized thing of young Republicans.
Roger Stone.
Was that Stone who organized that?
Stone was in a van.
Okay. All right. These were young Republicans, like actual young people, not like, young Republicans who are like in their 50s and crap. These are young
John
Republicans.
Roberts was one of they were attorneys. They were all there working. They were the legal teams.
The observers for the counts. Because
not just observers. They were brought in. Baker had mobilized lawyers from across the country who had been in, Reagan administration, et cetera, et cetera. And Roberts was one of those guys down there.
So they stormed the elections office and they shut down the counts that day. And, the police came and they're like, okay, no, everyone leave the building. It's fine. And the count was shut down. They could not and did not restart it. And many of these young Republicans, they ended up getting jobs in the Bush administration and like very good jobs on Capitol Hill and things like that. They were rewarded for an act of thuggery. Now, the chaos, any chaos after the election, I mean, there's going to be lawsuits, of course, but any actual chaos, maybe you want to call it, civil disobedience or just, breaking the law, any chaos helps the Republicans if their only goal is to prevent mail-in ballots from being counted, because there is a constitutional deadline for the electors to meet in early December. It is something like December 14th, thereabouts. It's like early mid-December. They have to meet and they have to meet and cast their votes on that day. And in the 2000 recounts, the final things that happened were the Florida Supreme Court ruled that the whole state is going to do a hand recount. And they were on track to finish it. They were on track by that deadline so that the Secretary of State, was a Republican, Catherine Harris, would have to certify that vote, the result of that recount, and then appoint the proper slate of electors who would vote. They were on track to do it until 48 hours before the deadline, the Supreme Court issued an injunction stopping the vote. An injunction is a drastic act. It's not something judges tend to do very lightly, especially not the Supreme Court. They issued an injunction using the rationale that if the recount were to continue, it would cause irreparable harm to petitioner George W. Bush. The irreparable harm would be, well, the recount might show that Al Gore won, so he would be deprived of the presidency that he did not win. So the both teams, they lure off. It was like Ted Olson versus David Bowie.
Let me just put a fine point on that. Of course. It was that it would prejudice the notion that George W. Bush had won. It wasn't so much that he would lose, it would create the perception that he had lost, which is also even almost in some ways even more bizarre if the votes were counted in that way, because they need to review it. Everybody, I can tell you, every legal expert that you would hear on television and on the radio in those moments leading up to the Supreme Court taking that case said it was highly, highly, highly unlikely that the Supreme Court would take that case, that they would even address it at all, because they're going to throw it back to the states. States are responsible for the voting. The state Supreme Court of Florida was to rule. And in my estimation, when this happens again, if it's Wisconsin that comes to them, they don't take it. If it's Michigan and it comes to them, they don't take it. If it's Florida and it comes to them, they don't take it this time. If it's Pennsylvania, they'll take it. Because those other states are conservative state Supreme Courts. Pennsylvania is left-leaning state Supreme Court. Go ahead.
So both sides go to D.C. They argue this case in Supreme Court. And again, the recount, which was on track, is suspended. And then they released their decision, 5-4 decision, saying that, no, you can't do the whole recount. No, this was improperly decided by the Florida Supreme Court. And you can't do the recount because this is so funny, because there's no way that they could meet the deadline because we issued that injunction. And furthermore, this case is not to be used as precedent for any other case.
Yeah.
So they explicitly said, and again, conservatives had a majority on the court. They said, no, we're no more of this. Bush won. Our guy won. And of course, there is a hard right conservative majority on this court. And I honestly think if Republicans decide, let's steal this election, and they start doing the chaos to shut down the counts, and they make some BS legal arguments, if they just delay, so that's the name of the game. They cause the chaos and they delay, and there's no one to step in and ensure that the votes are counted. And maybe the legal fights, continue and like pop up in lower courts all over the country. And that deadline of the electors to meet is going to loom, and maybe it's going to look like a whole mess. I think there are 4 people on the Supreme Court who right now want to say Trump won and Trump gets another term in office. I think John Roberts is probably going to be the deciding vote in this. And of course, he was appointed by Bush, and he's made some decisions that were unexpected, but he's still fundamentally a right-wing guy. And ultimately, Trump's MO has been to create so much ambiguity and uncertainty and doubt that the case is not going to be decided on the truth or falsity of the matter of who won the election, because nobody cares about that crap anymore. It's pure political tribalism, and Roberts belongs to one tribe. So if the election is stolen, that's one way it gets stolen. The other way, and this one is a little more complex, the other way is, let's say the votes all go off without a hitch, right? But they actually count the absentee ballots. There's not the street violence that we're talking about, like the Proud Boys are called.
Wait. Let's go back to the first scenario.
Yes.
The electors must be appointed. If not, doesn't the vote happen in Congress? And isn't the vote taken by the incoming Congress?
Yes. So what happens is the new Congress meets, and it's a meeting of both houses of Congress. They meet in the House of Representatives chamber, and they bring the votes in, the actual physical electoral votes in this big chestnut chest. I said it was mahogany on the show, but Megan Day corrected me and said it's actually chestnut. They bring in the chest, and then 2 people, or one from each party, they're appointed to actually count the votes. And anyone can object to any given votes or series of votes from a state, as long as the objection is in order and it will be debated, as long as one member of each chamber agrees to the objection. And then they will debate for 2 hours, and then each house votes on whether or not to accept the objection. This was all put into place by a bill that was passed in 1887 after there was a similar conflict in the election of 1876, which is probably a comparable era in terms of the sort of partisanship that we have right now. That was, of course, marked the end of the Reconstruction era. The other scenario, and this dovetails with what you're talking about right now. The other scenario is, let's say that these places like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, they have Michigan, they have Democrat governors, and I think Democrat secretaries of state. Let's say they do finish the count, and the late returns show that Biden won, and they certify that, and their electors, the Biden electors, are the ones who meet in the state houses, and then those are the votes transmitted to Congress. Let's say the Republicans, which control the legislatures in these states,
right,
because of gerrymandering, even though they got way, way, way fewer votes, they take their marching orders from Trump and McConnell and McCarthy and the RNC chair and all of these people who say no, we're fighting for this. We're fighting for this one. We're going to steal this one. They vote and they appoint their own set of electors, and they send those votes to Capitol Hill. And so the Republicans will object to counting the Democrat votes. And if Republicans control the Senate, this is the incoming Senate. If they control the Senate,
right,
and they all hold tight, they can say, you know what? We accept the objection. And the House says we don't accept the objection. And then there's an actual constitutional question there.
And if there's 50-50, Pence breaks the tie.
Pence is the tiebreaker. And also, this is crucial too. The vice president, the current vice president, will preside over the counts. And when I say preside, I don't mean it's just like ceremonial. Like, no. This is an actual meeting of both houses of Congress. He will gavel people into order. And there's a question about what votes actually come into the chamber, because I'm sure Republicans would make the argument that actually, Mike Pence is running the show. Actually, he gets to put those phony Republican Trump votes into the chestnut box. And then so the Democrats have to object to that. And then they have to get their objection passed through both houses of Congress. What happens if one house accepts the objection and the other house doesn't? That is not resolved. There is no way to resolve that, because even in 1887, when Democrats had just lost the freaking Civil War, even then they said, hang on, got that. Yep. Even then, I just got this. No, I still got this. Still got this. Even then they thought, well, okay, look, we're going to play nice. No one's going to monkey with the system too much, right? We're all going to know what a real objection is. We're all going to know when we've lost, even if it's very close. And there were very, very close elections at that point. This time, of course, I'm not confident in that, especially with Donald Trump as president, especially with this atavistic, reactionary Republican Party that still maintains a lot of institutional power, especially in the Supreme Court. So in that scenario, if Congress can't count the frickin' votes, which again has never happened in the history of the country.
Yep.
If, say, I don't know, one Republican, one House Republican and one Senate Republican decide to object to every single vote, and then they have to, by law, debate for 2 or 4 hours for each one, and they're just there for weeks. There's nothing to deal with these potentialities. The only thing that would actually end it is for the loser to admit they lost. And it's really a question of how ridiculous we're willing to look and how far we're willing to go and how shameless we are. And right now, with how they are trying to sell their coronavirus, the way that they've handled it, with them trying to shove that down America's throat, I think they'll go pretty damn far.
Yeah. I mean, and if you're going to get into a who has less shame race with Donald Trump, you're going to lose. All right. Well, listen, we're going to take a break. We're going to head into the fun half. If you are still capable because of your ill state, Jamie will join us. And the scenario that you have outlined is one of the reasons, if not the big one. I mean, one between those two scenarios, I should say, that I am all but certain at this point to vote for Joe Biden in a blue state, because I think there is a possibility that if Joe Biden wins by 10 million votes, as opposed to 3 million or 2 million or 1 million or 500,000 or whatever it is, that in the scenario you just said, it's going to make it a little bit harder for them.
I don't know. I don't know if it will, because it's already baked into their heads that we're going to lose the popular vote.
I don't know if it will either, but this is a debate that we will have at the fun half. This is called a tease. I don't know if you do this on Bad Faith, but this is called a tease. This is a radio technique. This is where people can join us in the fun half. Yeah, it's called.
That's smart. I'm learning so much there. I'm gonna stick around for a little bit to say hi to Jamie and give some closing thoughts, but I'll be here for a little bit.
Okay. All right, good. We're going to take a quick break, head into the fun half. Just a reminder, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. Also, check out the AM Quickie. I'm sure that Virgil listens to the AM Quickie every morning at amquickie.com. It's completely free, and it's 6 or 7 minutes. You get the headlines of news you need to know, so that when Virgil's walking his pet or whatever it is he does in the morning, that's a euphemism. And
when I'm taking pictures of my television in the morning, I'm getting my little mini dose of Sam. I'm microdosing on Sam in the AM.
Check out Nomi's show at youtube.com, the Nomaki Show. I think I said it right that time. You can find it at patreon.com. The Noah McKee Show. It starts every day at 3 p.m. right after this one. Or I should say 4 days a week right after this one. Also, Jamie, is Jamie here? Check out the Antifa.
Not yet.
Okay, you can check out the Antifada at patreon.com/Antifada. Matt, what's up with you?
TMBS, we had Ben Burgess and Joshua Kahn Russell on. And also, I was on Flight Simulator last night at twitch.tv/literary hangover. Flew over Algiers and Marrakesh while listening to Samir Amin talk about third world post-colonial revolutions. So,
awesome.
Oh, here's Jamie right now, actually.
I should also say that I was on what I thought was the Tim Heidecker show. It was some other show that I don't know. It was a bit of a mess, frankly, and I don't want to cast aspersions, but it was not. It was certainly not my fault. I can tell you that you log on to come on as a guest. I didn't know what was going on. I was asked to talk about some politics, and it was sort of a crap show. So
you were on Beef House.
I don't honestly even know what the name of the show was. A producer contacted me. I'm like, oh, Tim Heidecker, I like that guy. Some of the stuff he's done has been funny. And I went on to that program, and it was a crap show. And frankly, like I was, I thought like, oh, Sam, I would get a note like, I'm sorry. But
I'd like to go on. It's just like an anyone can go on type deal. Just
to be honest with you, I have no idea. When you log on, their Zoom thing has like a bunch. It's very confusing, and it was really. I was surprised at how unprofessional Tim was about the whole thing. To be honest,
he's very unprofessional. This man.
Well, I know I get jokes. It's just, but this one I didn't get.
So. I like jokes as much as the next person. Okay, but I think sometimes you got to, when it comes to show production, you got to take things seriously.
Hey, that's exactly my point. Exactly. You can tell a joke once you set it up properly. That's my point. Well, Jamie, what's happening on the Antifada?
It's very pedestrian of you, Sam. I think, humor comes in the format as well as the content, but, to each their own. This week, I'm just kidding. This week, that did not land. I am similarly sick to Virgil. So, if I say
how did that happen?
If I say anything dumb today, I just want everyone to know that it's not my fault. Glad that's settled. Okay, so this week on the Antifada, what do we got? Me and Sean talk about a little what we've been reading, break down some news of the day. We got QAnon in Congress. We got a town in Pennsylvania. They used to be kind of socialist, and now they're all MAGA chuds. We got ICE doing eugenics on people. Just another fun, chill episode about rising fascism. Then in the bonus that we released today, we talk about the Breonna Taylor settlement and the probably wrong question of what to do with killer cops. I think that question is a bit misleading when we talk about this stuff on the abolitionist left. We also talk about some killer investments being made by an investment firm called BlackRock that has been investing in trailer parks, as it turns out. For some reason, they think that is a good thing to invest in right now. Patreon.com/theantifada.
Can I do plugs? Can I do plugs?
Sure. I mean, I feel like you plugged it quite a bit during.
Well, I mean, everyone's talking about what's in the show, so I feel like I should just mention a little bit what our recent lineup is.
I already know because.
Well, I mean, let me just hear it. Later today on Bad Faith with me and Brianna Gray, whom you love. You love Brianna Gray, and you love listening to her. Later today, it will be posted. Our wonderful panel with Hassan Piker, Megan Day, and Osita Wanevu. We talk about Trump stealing the election. You heard it you heard a little bit of this here. You can hear from more people. We talk about the right-wing trolls who are not the right-wing trolls. We talk about Uber and Lyft spending over $100 million and paying people to harass activists online, labor activists online, in order to pass California Prop 22, which is a bill that would amendment that would let them classify their workers as contractors so they don't have to pay them health insurance. Also, if you subscribe at patreon.com/badfaithpodcast, you will immediately unlock our wonderful episode with Leslie Lee for the podcast Struggle Session, where we talk about that professor lady who pretended to be black. And we talk about Brie makes me watch the Kardashian show, and I can get my thoughts on that. And we construct a black people test to test that Brie is black. I didn't realize, I feel like I should have done my due diligence before going into business with her, because, it's just going around now. It's going around. So you can see the results of Brie's black people test if you go to patreon.com/badfaithpodcast and subscribe. You will also access an exclusive panel where we give our real opinions about Kamala Harris. That one is with Rachel Oyster Kim, Zoran Mamdani, who is going to be a socialist state legislator here in New York, and Sean KB from Antifa. And finally, there's another free episode that was crap. I don't remember what we talked about. I think it was Biden or something.
Buddy,
we talked about
action. Jeez.
We talked about politics. That was a great one. It was Glenn Greenwald, Jabari Brisport, and Malika Jabali. And all of that content is right there for the picking. Some of that's free. Listen to the free one, but definitely check out the premium stuff. $5 a month. It's really fire. And it's really funny. It's funny. It's great. Patreon.com/badfaithpodcast, badfaithpod on Twitter. It's probably elsewhere, probably on your iTunes. Who knows?
I read Walmart, circulars that were more specific. God, so many different products. You're pumping. You got to do one call to action, for God's sakes.
Well, the call to action is go to patreon.com/badfaithpodcast.
Okay. See you in the fun half. Left is best.
Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous? You're a little bit upset? You're riled up?
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Ooh.
Rand Paul. I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agreed.
No.
Death to America.
Do.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up.
Ooh.
Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me...
Hey, shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
I got to say, I've been doing the show for 10 years, and I don't know if there is a single sort of 3 minutes that exists in my life more than watching that makes me feel like it's worth it. Like that is just, I feel like that's honestly like if our gravestones have like video loops capacity by that point, which it should, right? There's really no reason why we shouldn't have built-in video.
That's a thing now already.
Is it already?
You can pony up for that now.
All right. I mean, and it should be wildly available, I think, hopefully by the time I die. I'm looking, I'm hoping for decades from now, that you'll embed a small video player that, and I think that's probably pretty close. I probably do a couple pictures of my kids, but that I think I'd like to see in there. That would be great. All right. So let's pick up this. I mean, let's put it this way. So I just want to return to where we left off.
Yeah.
The argument I was making was based upon your two, potential scenarios. Mm-hmm. And look, it's impossible to put a percentage on those things, right? I mean, but they're both, I think they're within the realm of possibility. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Yeah.
And I would then say that the fact that those are possible, there's obviously a whole host of other things that we need to do to deal with something like that. Like we need to be prepared that maybe we need to, have people who are sort of pushing back, in those situations. Maybe it's on the streets, maybe it's in protests, going out, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But I do think that there is, and I'm going to make the extreme argument here. If Donald Trump loses by 10,000 popular votes versus 15 million popular votes, that the pressure that Republicans will feel will be different. It may not be enough, but it will be different when they've got to make all those decisions as to whether we go ahead with this.
Sure,
that is it, because of I have no counter argument, frankly, to voting for Biden in a blue state other than I don't like Biden. I wish he wasn't the nominee, but I don't have any other active reason. I'm not concerned about the Green Party getting 5% this year for a myriad of reasons. I don't, I would love to get more write-in votes for myself as president in New York State. But aside from that, I have no reason not to vote for Biden in that situation. I don't think there's a message being sent to anybody in the Democratic Party. It's just that the slight odds that could have some material impact lead me to come to that conclusion that I should probably vote for him in a blue state.
Well, Sam, I'm generally of the mind. I think that is a compelling argument, and I'm generally of the mind that you should vote for whom you want to win. Generally, I think fundamentally voting is a performative act, and of course it's a private performative act, but it is a performance in some way.
But it's
and
not
I don't want to call it a moral act, but I mean it is. Like when it's on the cellular individual level, it is, because of course everyone knows, okay, my one vote is not going to swing the election. My vote is not going to change the total to such a degree that, like, when that next vote comes in, Mitch McConnell goes, well,
how many votes did he win? Did Bush win by in Florida?
It was not one.
Well, I agree with you, but
it was not one.
But the final count was 536.
But it was not one.
Well, the his vote tally was higher. With their official certified vote tally. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know how many Nader got that 90,000 votes.
I will say this. I don't want to get bogged down terribly in this debate, because I'm mostly agnostic about the debate. I'm mostly focused on other things right now. I think that if Biden is going to win and people vote for Biden, I mean, that's up to Joe Biden and the $1 billion that he's raised in his campaign that he's going to spend. It's up to the decisions that he makes. It's not really going to be up to me. And I'm not. I have never, frankly, told
I would
anyone.
agree with that.
You know, I've never gone out and told anyone, okay, you absolutely. I've never shamed anyone, and you absolutely have to vote in this way, or you're a bad person, or whatever. I leave that to a personal decision based on your evaluation of the candidates. That being said, David Brooks wrote an article saying, well, you know, if one of these scenarios happens, then you know what, we need to take to the streets, and it's not going to be these anti-capitalist, you know, Black Lives Matter weirdos. No, we need normal people like David Brooks and David Brooks's readers to take to the streets. And he wrote verbatim, we need a Belarus or a Hong Kong in this country, made up of David Brooks readers to stop the assault rifle sickos from stealing the election. And I have 2 points on that. One is, no, that's not going to happen. You guys are not, the Volvo driving latte sippers are not going to scale the White House fence and get Trump out of there. And
be my guest, guys.
I mean, for one, most of the David Brooks readers have been appalled by people doing acts of civil disobedience over the past few months, and have their contempt for them has been frankly unbridled. So that's what.
Well, my people aren't going to do it, so maybe they should.
Well, that's one, and you know, it is interesting. I think Megan Day brought this up in our panel that it is interesting how the Democrats are not good at mobilizing people in the streets, and Republicans have actually gotten rather good and rather scary at that. But the other point is, you know, any chaos helps Trump. It helps slow down the vote. There's a hard deadline that has to be met, and finally, this is all going to be up to Joe Biden. It's going to be up to what Joe Biden says. Because if you remember, Sam, and of course you remember because you have a photo of this, after the Supreme Court handed down the decision, this total FU decision, Al Gore said to his lieutenant, Kevin Spacey in the movie Recount, don't beat up on the Supremes. He said, it is this process, this constitutional, you know, this handover of power, this process is so sacrosanct, and that people must have trust and faith in it, that it is better to lose the election. It is better to have the election stolen than it is to acknowledge the fraudulence of it. And I genuinely wonder how Joe Biden would react to an even ballsier, even more shameless, even more fraudulent attempt to steal the election. It will be up to him how we not just prepare for it. And again, the Democrat Party has a legion of lawyers. They have to be ready for the court decisions. They have all this influence in the media and in Silicon Valley, who are, you know, they're going to make it. They're going to try to drill it into everyone's head that, by the way, this count isn't real. This isn't the final vote count. By the way, this isn't the final vote count. They have all that power. They hold all the cards here, and it's a question of how far Joe Biden is going to take it. Whether Joe Biden is going to say, no, this is a stolen election. You should no longer have faith in the Supreme Court, in your electoral system, and you need to commit acts of civil disobedience right now. The military needs to install me as president. You need to take to the streets. You need a general strike. Whether Joe Biden will do that, and I've got a hunch about what he's going to do.
I will also tell you that I'm quite convinced that John Kerry did the same thing in Ohio in 2004. Actually,
I don't know. John Kerry lost by a bigger margin on Ohio.
I think John Kerry felt that Ohio was stolen and did nothing about it. And I mean, that's why we you know, Clinton the other day, right, sort of out of nowhere, you know, had some type of like. Was putting the message out to Joe Biden, do not concede. And you know, I think it's going to come down to Joe Biden. I have a feeling, you know, the thing about Joe Biden, he's self-righteous enough that I think that I wonder. I mean, I wonder if they're going to, you know, the institution over the reality. But I think it's pretty hard for him to have said this whole time around that his entire campaign is a function of like, we need to save the republic. This is our last chance. And then to just sort of like, well, but they were really aggressive in trying to steal it. So let's back off. I mean,
I don't know, because I honestly don't I don't buy it from Biden when he does the Save the Republic stuff. I mean, he's running for, we know why he's running for president. It's for the same reason he's been running for president for the past 32 years, because he wants to be president. That's it. No, and I don't think, and of course, if you run for president, you want to be president. And I think there's a limit to how that ambition can conflict with reality. And you have, guys like McCain and Romney, they conceded pretty quickly. Kerry, interestingly, they didn't concede that night, but it was looking pretty bad. That was actually the most recent time that someone in Congress actually objected to counting electoral votes, and they actually did have to go through this process. So that gives you some indication of the times that we're in. But with regard to Biden, I mean, if it's a fight between these two ambitious old men, if it's a fight between who is more shameless, then of course Donald Trump is going to win that fight every time.
I hope.
And if it's a fight between two parties, then the Republican Party is going to win that fight every time.
Yeah. Here's a question that I've been pondering in my head, and I've come up with a depressing answer to it. Like if this crisis happens, if people need to get out in the streets and, libs are saying, come on, Bernie bros, come on, Antifas, it's time for you to save democracy or whatever. Are we going to form some sort of popular front in support of effing Joe Biden? And my answer is maybe, maybe not. We do not have practical unity on the question of either how much this election matters or if it matters at all, who we want to obviously no one's for Trump. We don't have practical unity on this election on the organized left. But even if we did, I just don't think that we have the kind of numbers and the kind of power that it would take to amass the kind of direct action that would really pose a threat in any way to what's coming, the energy coming from the right on this.
I do think it also matters exactly
But that will not stop liberals from blaming us when Trump wins.
I do think it does matter, not just what Biden does, but also what the other, the leaders in Congress do, what Nancy Pelosi does, and people like that, and whether it seems like they're just going to make symbolic objections in the way that they've been making symbolic objections to Trump for the past 4 years. Because of course no one's going to go into the street if it's just more of that crap, if it's more of the symbolic impeachment crap, if it's more of the, we're going to condemn the children in concentration camps and we're going to fund them anyway. If it's more of that, then if it's more like we're going to fundraise off this stuff, then of course no one's going to follow that. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe they do have a breaking point where they say, oh, no, actually, this is for real. Like, we're no longer a democracy. Like, you actually have to do something. In which case, I do think the left would rally around that. I do think the left that's cool, lukewarm on Biden and really mostly hates the Democrats will still say, actually, you're right. We should have a democracy. That is correct.
I think there's going to be. I think that's accurate. I think if there is a sincere. I mean, sincere is probably not the right word, but something greater than just sort of like lip service. I think that's quite. I mean, look, there was, the women's march, all knit caps aside, there was a lot of people who hit the streets at that time, and I think those people, there's be no less. It also depends on how the Democrats now go about this stuff and actually highlight it so that there's some awareness that, what's happening today in terms of like maybe fighting against these ballots. I mean, to a certain extent, like we've seen this with the post office, and that's been pretty good. There was a lot of attention.
Absolutely. That's the postal union.
Yep. And I think like these are making sure these things that ultimately could have implications later, making sure that they are broadcast, things like Durham's, Durham's lieutenant quitting I think the Democrats have failed to sort of make a bigger deal of that. Maybe they're afraid of that, but the idea is that they can signal to people and get it into the bloodstream that like, hey, this is problematic, because it's much harder to do that on November 4th.
Mm-hmm.
You need to lay the predicate now.
I also want to note, you talked about, guys like McConnell, making this calculation about, whether we really need the White House. I do think people like Pelosi will be making this calculation too. And they might think, we survived 4 years of Trump. We didn't really do that much to stop his agenda. And he's great for our fundraising. He's great for the media. He's great for ratings. Let's just let the show go on. Screw it. I'm not getting arrested for this crap.
I worry that is also the case. I mean, it's, there has been they could have been far more aggressive on oversight if they wanted to. And, it's hard to know what the reasoning is, but there is this, if she feels that she institutionally can maintain power, it's hard to sort of, we're going to see, let's put it that way. But I think that is a possibility too. I don't think that's absurd to contemplate. I think that is very, very possible that there are people in the Democratic Party who are perfectly comfortable being the opposition party and, gave it the old college try.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of a nightmare scenario like, oh, you leftists think it's bad when they tell you to suck it up and vote for Joe Biden. And even though the Democratic Party sucks and does all this terrible shit that you hate, you got to do it. You got to do it anyway for the good of the country. What's it going to be like when we're being asked to suck it up and do direct action because the Democrats and the liberals and the centrists won't do it? Are we going to do it? I still don't know, but I think you actually laid out a pretty convincing case, Virgil. If it is egregious enough to be democracy is actually under threat. And another example that kind of gives me hope of that happening is the airport protests that happened after the election in 2016. I mean, that really was a popular front that brought out people from the organized left who've been doing direct action for years. It brought out liberals who maybe had never been to a protest before.
Yeah.
And it because the need, it was just so clear and so urgent that we needed to do something. So maybe that gives me a little bit of hope for the future, even though, Biden over Trump is not as sexy on its face as, wanting to prevent fascist deportations and stuff.
And just to be clear, the Democrats have to signal that it's egregious. That is the point, is that it cannot be something where some people think it's the Democrats, the opposition defines how serious this is by their reaction. Virgil, do you want to hang in there, or do you need to?
Are you going to calls?
I don't. We're not going to be able to take calls today, folks. Because,
oh, wonderful. Okay, I'll hang around. I hate taking calls. I just hate it because people say mean things. I don't like it.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Well, we're not able to take calls. I may read some IMs, but we can't take any calls today. Because,
okay, read some nice IMs. Read if they're nice. Read nice IMs. Maybe about my outfit.
But I want to.
If they're mean, don't worry. I'll tell them not to talk to me or my son ever again.
We have some sound clips that we're going to go through.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
This is pretty awesome. Well, we'll do two of these. This one's pretty good. We were just talking about protests. This happened, I think it was on the Brooklyn Bridge yesterday. New York taxi drivers. There is obviously there's tough situations going around all around, but taxi drivers got to pay the rent on their taxis. Mm-hmm. And they were already working on razor thin margins because Uber and Lyft have come in and have basically skirted the laws and have usurped a lot of their business. And of course, people are nervous about getting into a taxi during coronavirus. Mm-hmm. And they're looking for debt forgiveness. They're looking for support. We have, these guys are contractors. They're not employees. And they're still working. They're not getting unemployment insurance. And of course, that is, we've seen the extra been reduced for now over a month and a half. They didn't get any PPP bailout. And so here they are on the Brooklyn Bridge looking for debt forgiveness and not letting people drive. They stopped on the Brooklyn Bridge. This is pretty cool. Of course, that camera person had stopped on one of the pictures, but they wanted to let us know there's a helicopter there. I mean, they have posters on the thing. Where is it? Oh, here he is. Let's see what that's it. Oh, of course, turn away. Debt forgiveness. Well, they're looking for debt forgiveness. And,
for the medallions?
Yep.
No, those are expensive.
They're expensive. Well, most of these guys probably don't own the medallions. Most of these guys and gals, if they're, these drivers are renting their cab and access essentially to the medallion, and they're underwater.
Yeah.
And what do you do in that situation?
It's a tough job. Those margins are very slim, even in good times.
In good times. And so what do? You quit your job, and it's not like you got, like you need the cash. But at the same time, you can barely, you're going out there and you can barely make what you're renting. In some cases, you're losing money on some days.
Well, a lot of taxi drivers drive for the apps too at the same time on the side, because that's the only way to make ends meet.
I don't know how long you want to get into this. Is sort of long. Somebody sent me this, and this was Krystal Ball referring to what she perceives as a hypocritical war on the Green Party by the Democrats when it comes to the ballot. And I was a little reluctant, but I just think that, look, this, and maybe this is, getting a little hair splitty, but the fact of the matter is the Green Party, there's just some misstatements here. And there is some misattributions. And look, I'm not standing for the Democratic Party here. Although, we just talked about, will the Democrats stand up to, chicanery because they want to win this election? And we're worried that they won't, because a lot of times they're weak. They're weak, even from an ideological perspective. Putting that aside, they're just bad partisans more often than not. And in multiple instances around the country, the Green Party, either because they're just inept or because they don't care, I don't know, they have messed up their essentially the rules to get on a ballot. These are not complicated things. You need to get a certain amount of signatures. You need to have you need to make sure that these signatures are real. How you present yourself needs to be real. In the context of Wisconsin, they did not. The vice presidential candidate had changed her address. They were given 2 opportunities to fix it. You can sign an affidavit that the address thing changed in the middle, and that would have done it, and they did not do it. Now, they either didn't do it because they wanted to have a court case, or they did not do it because they're just incredibly incompetent.
Hang on, Sam. I thought the case was they had signed the forms with 2 different addresses for that.
They had signed the form for 2 different addresses. However, in Wisconsin, all they had to do was sign an affidavit saying it was an honest mistake, and they were given the opportunity to sign that affidavit, and they didn't do it. Now, it's either they didn't do it because they're completely incompetent, or they didn't do it because they wanted to make a splash about it.
I don't think they wanted to make a splash about it.
Then they're completely incompetent.
Well, no, the Green Party is full of idiots. I had no idea.
This is just the reality. I mean, this is every single person in, if you read into this, that is what happened. There was 2 ways they could have fixed that. Yeah. They were given ample opportunity to do so. They did not do it. And they sued in the state Supreme Court. Apparently they Googled and just happened to find, the law firm that represents Republicans. And they lost in the state Supreme Court in Wisconsin. This is a conservative state court, incidentally. They're supposedly nonpartisan, but they're very closely aligned to Republicans. If the Republicans really wanted them on the ballot, which they did,
Republican majority on that court.
Yes, without a doubt. In Pennsylvania, there was a similar situation where they screwed up, and the Democrats sued them because of their screw up on their signatures. And the state's court in Pennsylvania found that it wasn't their signatures weren't valid. There is a long history in Pennsylvania, going back at least until the aughts that I'm aware of Republican funders providing funds for Green Party candidates. I mean, big funds, like Santorum's operation was funding Greens in Pennsylvania. And in Pennsylvania, what subsequently happened is Supreme Court, because they didn't send out the ballots in time in Pennsylvania, they extended 3 days because Democrats sued in a separate case to extend the deadline when they count. But here is, with all of that as the reality, listen to the way that Krystal Ball on, what is this show?
AM Rising
characterizes this.
He is aggressively fighting to get the Green Party kicked off the ballot in numerous swing states and actively damaging the mail-in voting process in at least one key state. Let me explain what's going on. So, you know the backstory here. In 2016, you might recall that Hillary Clinton lost the presidency. She, in the Democratic establishment, never wanted to accept any blame for the
go for it. I mean, we know this story.
I'm so bored already.
I like this music, though.
Montana obviously is not critical for the presidential race, but is key to Democrats trying to win the Senate majority. And it's really wild how they actually pulled this off. So the Green Party did everything right, and they got the sufficient number of signatures to be on the ballot. But the Democratic Party actually went and contacted voters who had signed the Green Party petitions and bullied them into recanting their signatures, effectively disenfranchising those voters who had already voted for the Green Party candidates in the state's primary. In Texas, national and state Democrats are suing.
I got to be honest with you. I don't know the story about the bullying that they did to these signers. I'm not sure what that means, but okay, that's possible that in Montana that is the case. But continue.
Candidates off the ballot there as well. At issue in Texas is a new and possibly unconstitutional law requiring third-party candidates to pay up to a $5,000 filing fee. That law is new and is currently being litigated in the courts. The candidates in question have been upfront that they don't intend to pay those filing fees while this matter is being litigated and being resolved. One of the candidates involved told Salon, quote, "I'm dismayed that while Democrats are complaining about the Republicans and Donald Trump are trying to suppress the vote, they're doing exactly the same. But the most egregious efforts are..."
Pause it for 1 second. The Democrats passed that law in Texas?
That's not possible.
That's not possible. But continue.
Most egregious efforts are happening in a couple of key presidential battleground states. So in Wisconsin, the Supreme Court just ruled at the 11th hour that the Green Party should be tossed from the ticket over a minor technicality. So what happened here is Green Party vice presidential candidate Angela Walker moved in the middle of the petitioning process, meaning that for a portion of the signature gathering period, the address on the ballot petitions reflected her previous address rather than her new address. The deadline to send out mail-in ballots, according to that state's law, is this Thursday. So thanks to the Democrats, Wisconsin voters will have one fewer choice this November.
Now, pause it. I'm sorry. Okay, there was this discrepancy. They were given the opportunity to fix it with an affidavit. They didn't do it. People should read into that a little bit. And the Democrats, there's no doubt in my mind, they capitalized on that. But this is a Republican-controlled court that ruled that. That's just the reality.
Well, I'm sure that I'm sure that there's some truth to these matters and that they screwed up. I don't know. They got high or something and forgot to do it. Whatever. I mean, you're kind of nagging them a little bit, Sam. This is a lot like, you had 3 days to do the dishes. They're not soaking in there. I don't know, there's flies.
That's right.
I hear this a lot, Sam, and it's
true.
Hairs on the back of my head are.
But here is the last one. We're talking about Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Understand, 2 separate cases that are going on in Pennsylvania. One was about the Green Party on the ballot. The other was the Democrats pursuing an extra 3 days on a separate case. Continue.
outrageous example of all is in Pennsylvania. Hillary Clinton lost that state last time by around 44,000 votes. As Democrats will tell you in anguish, Jill Stein garnered 49,000 votes, more than Trump's margin. What they are less likely to tell you is that Gary Johnson vastly outperformed Stein on the ballot, earning nearly triple her numbers and triple, of course, then Trump's margin. So, in Pennsylvania, Democrats have gone so far as to allow their court challenges and aggressive war on the Green Party to delay the beginning of mail-in balloting in that absolutely critical state. So this is according to CNN. Here's what they have to say. The state's Democratic Party remains in court, battling to keep the Green Party off the ballot. The pending legal dispute has led to a delay in certification of the November ballot, and as a result, all Pennsylvania county election officials who this year could have started offering absentee or mail-in ballots, as well as in-person early absentee voting starting September 14th, are now in a holding pattern. So let me get this straight. The people who have been...
All right, so that's it. That's it. Okay, and then she goes on to say that Democrats are doing it. But when the Greens did it in Wisconsin because of their screw-up, it's the Democrats' fault. When the Democrats do it in Pennsylvania, it's the Democrats' fault. She does not mention that the Democrats are also pursuing a 3-day extension granted by the state Supreme Court today. So there is a 3-day extension, which will actually help probably more than it will go beyond. The net will be positive. And it's just like, look, I get it. The Democratic Party is highly problematic. But to use the Green Party, which has been so inept, and particularly in Pennsylvania, funded by the Republicans, and expect that if the Democrats weren't doing anything, I'd be sitting on this program going like, these people are incompetent. The Democrats should be challenging this. This is BS. And that's basically it.
Well, Sam, you know I'm not a member of the Green Party. I've never really supported the Green Party. But I can't really celebrate these things. I mean, look, again, I'm sure there's some truth to the matter that there is some incompetence and they didn't tick some boxes and they screwed up or something. But hang on, at the end of the day, well, first off, they got the signatures, right? And frankly, you want to talk about that Wisconsin decision. These are all partisan decisions. Republicans have a 5-4 majority in the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And 4 of the Republicans voted to put the Green Party on the ballot. 4 of the Democrats voted to toss the Green Party from the ballot. That is not, okay. That is not a matter
scientific, right? This is
right. That is not a matter of objective
blind justice,
facts.
Right? No, I get
it.
And
and often, generally speaking, judges, they don't like wading into this kind of crap, and yet often when they do, of course, the major parties are privileged. You remember, I'm sure, the 2002 New Jersey Senate race where Torricelli was the Democratic incumbent, and he went to prison, something like that. And they could not, by law, replace him from the ballot. They could not replace him with a new candidate. So they appealed to the New Jersey Supreme Court, and they said, nah, screw it. Put someone else up. Put Corzine on. I think it was John Corzine. So of course, it's not about the law. Frankly, it's about who gets a preferential treatment. And this is honestly at a time when we are talking about like the threats to the legitimacy of our electoral system. This is not something to be celebrated.
I'm not celebrating the fact that they're not on the ballot. I don't care. I don't think they're going to get those amount of votes. What I'm talking about, though, is the way that it's being characterized. You're right. It is a Republican court in Wisconsin. That was not a Democratic partisan decision, right? Like the court was offended by the fact that these guys were given so much opportunity to do this that it was too blatant.
Well, it was one guy. It was one Republican who joined all 4 Democrats.
Of course.
Yeah, and they've clearly never had sativa before.
Right. And
acid whippets or any number of things that the Green Party knows about that the Republicans don't.
But it's really just about the way that this is characterized, as if like the Democrats, what they're doing is somehow sort of uniquely evil, or the fact is that this is a story of utter green incompetence. They took, that's really the issue for me. It's just sort of like,
okay, sure.
to the extent that I am biased, it is right on my,
Well, I mean, I agree with you. The Green Party and the third parties tend to be used for for rat fucking, basically, by the two major parties. And I don't read an ideological thing into this. I would agree with you on that. Because of course, Democrats are doing what, frankly, if they want to win, that they should be doing, if that's your only objective. I'm just saying this is really a tread lightly type situation, because it's not good to have these sorts of precedents, especially when Republicans have so much power down ballot in these states, thanks to things like gerrymandering, thanks to things like the gargantuan sums that Republicans have been spending to take things like state Supreme Court races, the judicial races over the past few decades. It's not a good precedent.
But it is the inevitability of these are they are politicians who are sitting on these courts.
Is it really? But I do have to ask. You're the Democrats. I do have to ask. Is it really that smart to make this case right now, knowing that just for this election, knowing that it could bite us in the ass later, when I could weigh that against, say, making an earnest attempt to appeal to Green Party voters?
Happens every election.
But to make an earnest attempt to appeal to Green Party voters, maybe that is the path of least resistance, and maybe that is the path that is not going to bite us in the ass down the line.
But listen, everybody said in 2016, these Green Party voters were not going to vote for Democrats anyways, right? And that may be the case or not. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the breakdown is. I'm sure there were some that would have voted for the Democrat in the absence of the Greens. I'm sure that,
Absolutely.
But I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know if they're sufficient. The point I'm making is less about whether they should be on the ballot. If a Republican court in Wisconsin says they shouldn't be on the ballot, and it's in the best interest of these highly partisan judges to push it to the extent that they can, I take that. In Pennsylvania, it's a left-leaning court. At least the Democrats pursued an extension to allow for more voting in that respect. But my point is the characterization is an extension of the Green Party being used to do that type of rat fuck. And that is what I take issue with. And it not being characterized as that way. Like the righteousness involved in this, basically what we all know is a rat fuck, at least part of it is financed by the Republicans. It is just a partisan battle. If you want to decry there's too much partisanship and et cetera, and these state Supreme Court are corrupted in some way, agreed. But there is no precedent. The precedent is a function of who sits on these courts at this point, right? Because they're going to come to the conclusion that they're going to come to. And so that's what I'm taking issue with, is really just sort of this characterization that somehow what the Democrats are doing is extra specially problematic in this instance.
We have been talking about, the legitimacy of the electoral system, about these very real threats to democracy and the rule of law. And frankly, it's not hard to imagine down the line. And, of course, I do agree with you. It depends on who sits on the court, but there's also an emboldening happening where, maybe the next group of Republicans who sit on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, or they take power there, maybe they are more willing to play hardball and say, what, this Democrat Senate candidate he didn't sign this line. He wrote okay in the box that says do not write in this box. So he's off the ballot. I think maybe they're more likely to do that going forward.
I can tell that my politics have changed themselves around since 2016, because in 2016, I would have cared at least enough to write several blog posts about this. And now, you guys might as well be talking about sports right now.
Right.
We are talking about sports.
I'm responding to a video that somebody sent me and said, this is an example of something being mischaracterized. And that's what I'm talking about.
Well, I'm sure if they keep on eating gluten-free and avoiding vaccines, they'll do a better job next time.
Are there any IMs about my outfit yet?
Let's do this and see if there's any IMs about your outfit. Let's see. Virgil is cool. Got to watch The Social Dilemma, especially if you have kids. Keep them safe. Sam, your impression of Canada's COVID response is dead wrong. Canada had 9,200 deaths, which would have been something like 92,000 scaled to the U.S. population. Canada effed things up early on, particularly at the province level. Quebec has been dealing with things terribly, while Ontario's premier, Doug Ford, brother of track mayor Rob Ford, let things get bad because of his corrupt focus on. All right, fair enough. So we would have scaled, we would have less than half the deaths. Fair enough. Centrist Democrats are awful. However, I think the Green Party is a pointless, self-congratulatory party that does next to nothing, and Bernie has done more for the left in electoral politics in 5 years than the Green Party has ever done. DSA is much better organization for the left than Greens have ever been. Advocate for ranked choice voting if you want a third party of a modicum of chance. I agree on that.
Yeah, I agree.
Look, I talked to Jabari Brisport a while back and asked him why he was running on the Green Party ballot line when they had let so many idiots in along the way, and it was a bit of a failed brand. And, you know, he had his reasons. He lost that time. This time he ran on the Democratic ballot line in addition to the Working Families Party and other stuff, and he won. So. And
I do want to say, and this is something that's very interesting to me and Brianna, because of course Brianna voted Green Party in 2016 and gets no end of hell about it. I think it's interesting how, of course, the DSA's electoral arm has been very, very successful in the past few years. It's increasingly successful, and the Jabari case is very interesting because this is part of the kind of trial and error of the past few years, and they realize, okay, the third party stuff, that's just not working. Let's just go into the primaries and let's win the primaries, and we can do that more easily. And it turned out to be the case.
Yeah. And this was a hyper local race too.
So it's like, of course, that shows you that, okay, well, the Green Party's been on the scene for 30 odd years now, and they haven't really figured any of this crap out. So yeah, that's why I'm not that interested in green politics as much as, okay, we're just going to figure out the best way to win, and then we're going to do it.
Yes.
Well, it is a good kind of cautionary tale as to what a workers' party should not be doing, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it should not be a 100% electoral operation. That is something that is really like the cherry on top, the pièce de résistance, something that grows out of the other work that the party's doing. If you lead with that, it's not going to work. You need to build a mass base and a movement before you can even start to think about running someone for president. Give me a break.
Yep. Yeah.
We love Virgil's outfit, says Rabbit from Boston. Understated tribute to Michael style.
Well, phenomenal. That's very sweet.
Sam CB Deer. Oh, I like that. Literally everyone I know who thinks the Green Party is worth supporting in a gluten-free anti-vaxxer. She nailed it.
Even Marianne Williamson ran as a Democrat.
Let's see what else we got here. Screen name pending. I wish I had something clever for Jamie. Stay awesome, comrade, and thanks the whole MR crew for the show. Here is, let's do this clip of, this is actually pretty funny because we have a clip of Rogan today, and we have a clip of Dave Rubin, who is apparently upset about everything that's happened with him and Rogan. Should we start with the Dave Rubin one?
Yeah, let's start with Rubin.
Okay. Now, as you know, Joe Rogan used to be, I guess, a patron of Dave Rubin's or a friend and would have him on. And then over time, I think the first time this sort of came out was in the context of him and Eric Weinstein talking about how I was trying to pick Dave Rubin off as if he was a wounded caribou, I think it was. And Rogan said, you can't blame the guy for being a little dim. I'm paraphrasing, but I think that's a fair paraphrase. And then over time, it became clear that Rogan did not want to associate with Dave Rubin, and to the point where Dave Rubin had his book come out, and he had to publicly say, I don't know why Joe Rogan's not having me on to promote my book.
Yeah, Joe misread "don't burn this book" as "don't book this author."
Yes, and that is, if you do it quickly, it's hard. And then recently, it appears from a clip from this show that Nomi and I did about Dave Rubin that Joe Rogan was calling Dave Rubin an idiot. And I'm paraphrasing, but I think he said he was dim. And apparently Dave Rubin is not going to take it anymore.
And I would really be worried about it. And not would be, I am worried about it right now.
Pause it for 1 second. I'm sorry. he's talking about, what is he talking about? Texas going blue. Dave Rubin does. Remember, Dave Rubin was talking about how he was going to move to Texas, but he stayed in California. I wonder why, but go ahead.
And I would really be worried about it. And well, not would be, I am worried about it right now, because look at it this way. When you see all of these people now supposedly moving from California, they can't take it anymore. They're moving from California to Texas. Well, often we know they export from California and then import it into the red states, all of these blue ideas and these bad ideas, and then they turn states blue. So, you know, if I was the average Texan conservative, I would be pretty worried when, say, Joe Rogan, I like Joe, but, you know, when Joe Rogan, who is a Bernie supporter, he's fleeing California to set up shop in Texas, right. And you're excited because it's kind of cool that Joe Rogan lives there, but it's like, he's gotten the big ideas wrong, and you have to be worried about that. That's not a shot at Joe Rogan personally, but that's just a reality, I think. And I would really be worried about it.
It sounds like it's a shot at Joe Rogan, isn't it?
It sounds like one.
I mean, like, why would you say his name if it wasn't a personal shot at Joe Rogan? With
what is
leftist ideas?
What has Rogan gotten wrong exactly?
I'm not sure. I'm not even sure what he's gotten right.
He's a Bernie supporter, apparently. I mean,
apparently
supported.
He's a Bernie supporter.
He endorsed Bernie, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's wrong to move to Texas. Is what he's saying?
He's taking his Bernie support to Texas.
He's
screwing up.
Texas
Okay.
By making it blue. And now this is interesting. This is I think this is Dave Rubin trying to sort of like get a little attention from.
Yeah,
Rogan.
that really feels like that. Yeah. So Rogan has cooties, and he's going to infect Texas.
He's going to infect Texas now.
Didn't he
with
say
that said,
probably vote for Trump now?
Yes.
Rogan?
He also said he would
he
probably vote for. So I think Rubin's really just looking for something to pick, to attack Joe Rogan, because I think his feelings hurt. And I just want to say that I think, like, Dave, if you ever hear this, you should just, let it roll off your back, buddy. Don't take things so hard. That's all. I think that's the best advice.
Also, you can come critique Joe Rogan on this show if you want to.
Yeah, if you want to come on, we can have a conversation about this, because I'm open to to a critique of Joe Rogan. Here, since we're talking about this, and to be fair to Dave Rubin, who has been really undercut by somebody he thought was his friend, here is a clip of Joe Rogan getting taken in by a hoax that has been going around that Antifa is responsible for the fires in Oregon. Here it is.
Enjoy going there. I actually love Portland. It's one of my favorite places to perform. Most of the people there are very nice, but there's a madness going on there. You want to talk about madness of crowds? That exemplifies that right now. And it's to me, they've arrested people for lighting forest fires up there. They've arrested left-wing people for lighting these forest fires, air quote activists. And this is something that's also not widely being reported, that people have actually been arrested for lighting fires up there. This is, I don't know if I would love to talk to the mayor and say, what is your strategy for ending this? Are you hoping this is just going to die down? Because these people want your head. And they want blood, and they don't seem to be willing to settle for anything less. And
now look, he's perfectly, he has, if he wants to criticize leftists as, being bloodthirsty, I suppose he can do that. But the fact is, and I'm going to do this in air quotes, the fact is, he's wrong. There is here is the FBI saying that agencies are receiving reports that extremists are responsible for setting wildfires in Oregon. With our state and local partners, the FBI has investigated several such reports and found them to be untrue. Scroll down, Matt. They go on to say, conspiracy theories and misinformation take valuable resources away from local fire and police agencies around the clock. Bring these fires under control. Please help our entire... Now, look, there have been people, as there are every year, who have been arrested and charged with arson in these instances. I don't know if they're responsible for any of these massive fires, but there's absolutely zero evidence or accusation by police forces or the FBI that any of these are leftists and they're doing it for political reasons. Some people are nuts and they set fires.
Well, trees are well-known supporters of fascism, so there you go.
This whole discussion on it, where we talk about leftists doing it, the people that are like nuts about that, they're going to see that on media too, and they might get, inspired. We talk about like suicides as like not wanting to cause copycats, or mass shootings not wanting to cause copycats. We're so far from having a responsible discussion about this that we're not even going to have it.
And it's hard to find. You'd be hard pressed to find leftists who are also going to attack, like the environment in this way. I mean, like, we're going to light a forest on fire.
Yeah, we hug trees.
Can I just say one of my greatest fears is that a forest fire will be named after me because I did something stupid. Because I've never lived in the West. I'm not familiar with dry seasons and things like that. So maybe it'll slip my mind. And I don't know, I'll just like be pacing around a dry forest, smoking or something, and it becomes the Virgil fire, and everyone thinks I'm an asshole on the news.
But when do you there's no naming of fires, is there?
Yeah, no, they name all the fires. They're all named. There's like the Big Bear fire is one.
Yeah, but they're named after the location.
Well, that might change. I might be the one who changes that.
I mean, if you catch on fire, they could call it
I might be the first
Texas fire.
Right, I might be the first tree that catches, and like I like run around and I hit a tree and it catches on fire, and it's like, oh crap, like I'm the location.
Yeah,
I mean,
you'd be like Thoreau.
The Thoreau fire. It's the Thoreau fire. There you go. I'm very similar to Thoreau in more ways than one.
Damn. I mean, we do know that one fire came from the gender reveal party, and now we've abolished gender.
It's the gender fire.
Can I just say something about what I've learned from taking media critical media courses where you should read your media critically. If it's not widely reported, and it seems like something that should, make sure you read why that might be the case. Because in this instance, the reason why it's probably only reported by Breitbart or by, Alex Jones.
PatriotNews.ap.
Exactly. Like that's probably an indication that, wait a second, this is something I want to research more before I go on and talk about it.
They're not going to report it in the lamestream press. Come on.
Like, is the corporate media really that protective of leftists, arsonists?
Look, the corporate media, as we all know, is in bed with the Democratic Party, and Antifa is the paramilitary wing of the Democratic Party. Ergo.
There you go. It's all Soros. It's all Soros. Here is let's go look at another a bit of lying that's going on. Jesus, Virgil, what do you got? Like flies flying around you?
I went out of town, and when I came back, there were flies. I was like, I cleaned the place before I went out of town, so I don't know what they're eating or why my presence is. I'm embarrassed now. I'm frankly embarrassed with it. Like,
Have you checked your pulse lately?
I'm taping right now. I'm taping. Can you please get off the set? Jesus.
Which one should we play first? Should we play Kilmeade or Ray? Which one? What in terms of temporal sequencing?
I think maybe Ray, and then see how Fox and Friends digested it.
Okay. Here is FBI Director Christopher Wray. Look, there's reasons always to be skeptical of FBI or any federal police force, but he does work for Bill Barr, who's really pissed about people talking out of turn. I think that Bill Barr, when he went to Hillsdale College and complained about little underlings doing stuff that was inappropriate for them, he was talking about Durham's lieutenant, essentially, that she complained that he was trying to release the results of it, like an interim report on a criminal investigation, which rather unprecedented in many respects. Here is Ray, though, remember, works for the Attorney General, saying that Antifa is actually not a top-down organization.
When we hear officials say Antifa is the biggest threat on the left, are they being correct?
Well, we don't
we don't really think of threats in terms of left and right at the FBI. We're focused on the violence, not the ideology. Our domestic violent extremists include everything from racially motivated violent extremists, which we've talked about here in this committee before, I think when I testified last year, for example, all the way to anti-government, anti-authority violent extremists, and that includes people ranging from anarchist violent extremists, people who subscribe to Antifa or other ideologies, as well as militia types and those kinds of.
Right. Well, I think what I'm trying to reflect on is we hear from time to time that this organization, by name, we need to investigate. The secretary designee, if he was here, he would get asked this question, but he's not. He asked for an investigation of Antifa because they were the greatest threat to the homeland. And if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that it's really not organizations so much as it is ideology. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that's what I heard.
I appreciate that. We look at Antifa as more of an ideology or a movement than an organization. To be clear, we do have quite a number of properly predicated domestic terrorism investigations.
So the bottom line is that there are individuals that may subscribe to certain ideologies that may be involved in this stuff. But in terms of organizations, it is militias and white supremacist organizations that pose an actual threat to the country. Now, this is obvious to anybody who really sort of like is not reading Breitbart as the only source of information. I mean, these are people who go out that's like saying, you know, I'm in favor of, you know, I don't know, any ideology for whatever it is, you know, veganism, and saying that we need to investigate veganists because there was somebody who tried to shut down a factory farm or something like that.
Well, I mean, anti-fascists do organize in groups. It's usually like small affinity groups, but no, there's not a centralized organization. And it makes sense for someone whose job it is to surveil and mess around with activists that they should know what it actually is, right? And what it isn't.
Exactly. And here is Fox and Friends reinterpreting that exchange.
And what happens is the protests turn into riots, and they have not stopped in Seattle. They have not stopped in Portland. They are worrisome in places like Kenosha that they could ignite again. And yesterday, the FBI director was on Capitol Hill and was asked about Antifa. He says they're absolutely a real organization and an ideology. Take that, Jerry Nadler. That is real. They need to be unwound. Remember, they show up with bats and bricks in an organized fashion. A lot of them have earpieces. They're trying to take down our cities, and the attorney general's not going to take it.
Damn.
I mean, like,
wow.
That's pretty impressive to be able to go on to national news and just completely lie about what happened in a public hearing in that way.
Maybe this is the lip in me coming out because I'm like, oh, you fact-checking nerds, how many Pinocchios is this? So many Pinocchios. This one has so many Pinocchios.
This is a Godzilla-sized Pinocchio.
It's a huge Pinocchio. All right. Well, let's take a couple IMs and then we're going to get out of here, folks. Where are we? Salt Lake City. Kyle, still don't have a state mask mandate in Utah. Oh, but here counties, instead of a mask mandate, they will give takeout food coupons to young people who don't go to parties during this time. They don't want to govern, but they want to motivate through food.
It's like to read a book and get a Pizza Hut coupon crap.
Exactly.
We are very food motivated.
We are very food motivated. It's true.
Who wouldn't for the free food, except for these people? Let's play this clip. This is nuts. And it's sort of fascinating. This is an anti-mask protester in St. George, Utah. Oh, no. Play the whole clip, Matt. Do you have the whole clip? Shoot. What happened to the one?
Isn't this the whole clip?
No, I gave you the whole thing. It's in the Slack. There's a very long thing here. This is worth seeing because it is incredibly disturbing in about 4 different ways. Matt's going to pull this up. It's a report from a local Utah station on this anti-mask, I guess what we call it, rally, protest. I'm all in favor of people protesting. Good for you. I just really horribly disagree with this. Did you find it, Matt?
Is it this one?
Yes.
I think.
Yep.
Gathered here in front of the Washington County Administration building, calling for the end of a mask mandate, saying they are tired of not living their normal lives.
No more masks! No more masks! Not on the backs of my kids, or you're gonna get more federal funds. That's how I feel about that.
A passionate call for action Friday morning in St. George. Several police officers on standby as many locals called concerns about coronavirus spikes overblown.
The flu kills more than coronavirus.
Carriers simply do not exist, and they cannot be forced to wear masks anywhere as citizens of the United States.
If we want to wear a mask, that's fine. We can take care of ourselves.
Some rally attendants say they shouldn't ever wear masks if they have any medical issues or mental health concerns, or if they feel they simply can't breathe.
When George Floyd was saying, "I can't breathe," and then he died, and now we're wearing a mask, and we say, "I can't breathe," but we're being forced to wear it anyways.
But many stated that they believe in all cases masks jeopardize kids' health. Parents are demanding they have the right to decide what to do with their children.
I'll tell you another reason I hate masks. Most child molesters love them.
School administrators responding that they don't understand why crowds are protesting them based on a mandate given by the governor.
That's it.
They blocked off the front entrance.
It's a governor mandate supposedly. And these guys are like, we're a school and we're holding this up. There's a couple of things there. I mean,
There's a couple
of things that we should point out.
Couple few.
That child is incorrect. The flu does not kill more people.
Owned.
We should say,
kid, you should not have come on the Majority Report.
The kid, you just got owned. I should also say that to compare the idea of wearing a mask and having a cop basically break your neck until you're dead is grotesque, and it also makes me wonder what's really behind this that you bring up the George Floyd protests in the context of your mask.
Well, because it's the same thing.
It's that's one answer.
Obviously, the breathing.
Obviously, the breathing thing.
It's probably. I mean, it's part of the trend of rich white people pretending to be subaltern in some way, trying to adopt a subaltern identity. Like, this poor black man who was murdered by the police. Yeah, that's basically me.
Bill Barr said that the lockdown was the worst thing, the worst abridgment of rights since slavery.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the way that they process these things. Why
Must
do
be
black
nice.
people, why do we have to work? Why do black people get all the sympathy? As if these mandates only apply to white people in this instance. And then lastly, the child molester line is interesting. I mentioned on Ring of Fire this week, I interviewed Ali, I can't remember his last name off the top of my head now. But there has been a long precedent of the right obsessing about pedophilia and child molestation that started in the 80s as a function of more and more daycare centers, which were indicative and became sort of a proxy for essentially the economic emancipation of women from being stuck in the kitchen. And this was an assault on the nuclear family, and that this idea of it grew out of that notion. And in some ways, I think it's like a Munchausen syndrome, where the protecting our children. This is why so many of those QAnon people, I think, are women in the suburbs, because this idea of protecting our children becomes a proxy for the sort of dissonance about what's happening with women not being relegated to a patriarchy and being dominated in the home. It's fascinating. Like, do child molesters really like masks?
It all goes back to pedophilia. Yeah. I mean, I only wish that the left had that kind of advanced, interwoven, intersectional critique that we see on display here.
Exactly.
I think there's something to be said about the atomization of society in the past, 40, 50 odd years, that turn people into, the death of any kind of communitarian instincts, that turn every stranger into a possible enemy.
Yep. And well, also, I mean, there was also just like enormous revelations too about things like what's going on with the Catholic Church, for instance, for decades. I mean, there's part of that is like, that fear is grounded in some, revelations about what was actually going on. But the idea that it gets sort of used in a surrogate fashion is what's sort of fascinating about it.
Yeah. Gentile, heal thyself.
Exactly. Let's go to JJ Cool. Hey, Sam, too bad you interrupted Virgil's highly detailed, never-ending commercial for his podcast. Now I have to subscribe to hear what happens. Well, that's why I was doing it. I was.
I don't make the rules.
Rob from Austin. Dave Rubin, maybe the one intellectual, doesn't know that Austin, where Rogan moved, is bluer than Alex Jones's face. Disco Stew, worth exploring why centrists saw through Rogan's bullshit better than many progressives, don't you think? I don't know if I would say that's true. Juggernautum, what's your opinion on the social dilemma and how these super rich tech giants blame their deconstruction of language and marketing opinion as fact based on a bad business model while astonishingly ignoring any people of color? I'm not sure I know what the social dilemma is. All right. Nobody else does. Antifa super soldier, the Ents are the real entrenched elites. We must uproot and overthrow. Redirect all Antifa Molotovs from Target stores to the forest comments. We got 3 more and then we're out of here. Justin, progressives should make a worker co-op to create a news network for TV. You all have your own studios. Progressive just need better ways to message with real progressives on TV. Yeah, TV is a very, very expensive venture. Yeah. Sally, screen name. Hi, Sam. This is your friendly neighborhood union lawyer. Have you thought about having your guest to discuss developments at the National Labor Relations Board? Scary stuff. Definitely goes with the discussion. I'd be into that. Send me ideas at majorityreporters@gmail.com. And the final IM of the day of the week, ladies and gentlemen. Virgil, thank you for joining us. Always a pleasure. Folks, check out Bad Faith. You heard the long form infomercial for it. Jamie, Matt, thank you for a great week. And Brindig says, Rogan issues an apology. Check Twitter. It's actually pretty genuine.
I'll tack it on the video, yeah.
Yeah, let's tack that on the video. And hopefully he says it on his show, too, because that was where, you don't want to cross the swords, as it were.
Sam, could I just say one last thing?
Yes.
Like it's not a pitch.
No.
I mean, I haven't been on the show in a while, and I just want to say that, of course, I'm very sorry for the loss of Michael, and his absence is acutely felt, and at this time when it feels like we're all surrounded by so much death, that it feels good to be here talking to you all and seeing you all, to see the Majority Report going on. So thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.
Appreciate that. Yeah, we feel it. I mean, I think we all feel it every day in some way. And I don't know. I still get a comfort from the interstitial on some level.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little bit of a denial, but it's also fun because, we're hitting our 10-year anniversary for this show, this iteration on Election Day, coincidentally. And, he was here for 8 years and really built a lot of this. Virgil, thank you again. Jamie, Matt, folks, have a great weekend. See you on Monday.
Bye-bye.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught.